Good. Good morning. It is October 22nd, and I'd like to open the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners, noting two commissioners are present in chamber, Mr. Christopher and myself, and Mr. Anderson is online. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands thank you. So business agenda. Do we have a motion?
I would move we approve the business agenda with 3 add-ons. Number 1 change is pulling item number 1 from the consent agenda and adding an amended resolution to unfinished business. Number 2 is a resolution ending the burn ban under new business. And number 3 is a Hood River Bridge letter of support.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
I would move that we approve the commissioner meeting minutes for September 24th and October 1st, 2024 as presented.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So we are to public comment, and we will have both comment in the room and on Zoom. If you're called in the room, please come forward to the microphone, make sure it's green, and give us your name and where you're from if you can. And online, be sure to unmute yourself or raise your hand so we can call on you. So we will start in the room. Somebody like to give testimony or comment this morning? I think come forward. Thank you.
I'll be talking this morning. My name is David Teese. I reside in the Glenwood Valley. I'll be talking this morning about comprehensive plan revisions and the extraction of minerals in this county that would stem from those revisions. The goal for mineral extraction in the comprehensive plan revision is to ensure full use of mineral deposits. And I emphasize full use. The findings tell us that significant quantities of sand and gravel and other common minerals are located across the county. The Portland-Vancouver urban area is identified as a possible market. Establishing widespread outright use for mineral extraction would deny the right that county citizens now have for meaningful consideration of grievances. This would be a serious degradation of that citizen right. If you really want to protect mineral resources, deny subdivisions and the like in forest, range, agriculture, and open space lands, as those underlying zones intend. Concerning the policy to protect residential areas from encroachment, consider that direct public notification for the James Dean Quarry expansion was only offered to those owning property within 300 feet of the exposed expansion. The public is ill-served by inadequate minimum standards of protection from encroachment. Another example of how encroachment happens is the assumption that mitigation works. Attempting to mitigate impacts of quarrying in the vicinity or even in the viewshed of houses would be like offering a desperately ill patient a Band-Aid. The Dean Quarry expansion request includes the possibility of an additional 38-acre expansion. Even without an exact plan or commitment, this is a phased proposal deserving more than segmented review in a series of checklists. The only proper and legal solution is to require an environmental impact statement. The proposed comprehensive plan revisions, combining with the scope and quantity of the quarrying it would encourage, can only result in significant negative impacts to the land, wildlife, and our citizens. Those impacts deserve an EIS review. You need to reorient the quarry and mining revisions to prioritize citizens over rocks and to emphasize local needs instead of a high-impact export market. We are the ones needing protection from an overzealous industry.
Thank you very much. Perfect timing. That's great. Thank you.
Give a copy to the county director.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to online. Anyone for comments this morning? I'm sorry, we trade back and forth. If you could let me do online once. I have to, is there anybody there? We have somebody online and then you'll be next. Okay, thank you so much. Roger, good morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, different Roger. Go ahead and take him.
Okay. I'm Roger Gadway, and I certainly agree with Mr. T's comments that it's strange to be revising the comprehensive plan to make an overlay zone for mineral extractions when we're due to revise the comprehensive plan. What is the emergency that it has to be considered by itself and rushed through now? Then I want to move on to what I'm actually here for, which is to talk about the Wilson Monroe rezone hearing. I wish to comment on the public hearing for the Monroe Wilson rezone. Although I obviously oppose the outcome, I want to comment on the process employed by the Board of Commissioners. Although the planning department encouraged written comments so that the commissioners would be able to read and to understand the comments prior to the hearing, none of the commissioners addressed any of those comments. They may have read them, but did they think about them and consider them in their judgment to endorse the Planning Commission's approval? We will never know. My comment in particular addressed the question of whether the proposed rezone was in the public interest. The Planning Commission spent about an hour pondering the question of what was meant by public interest. It finally concluded that since the proponents of the zone change would benefit from the rezone and the future buyers of the properties would benefit, it was in the public interest. The Board of County Commissioners failed to address this issue, even though it is required that the rezone be in the public interest for it to be approved. Instead, the board praised the Planning Commission for its diligent work in improving the rezone. If this interpretation of the public interest is accepted, any proposed rezone would be in the public interest, no matter how misplaced or ill-conceived, since there is always a seller who would benefit and a future buyer who can be assumed to benefit. I ask that in your response, each member of this board state whether the definition of public interest is appropriate and whether they think it should be used in future land use decisions. If you do approve of this definition of public interest, do you think that the public interest so defined allows the contradiction of the clear policies of the Snowden sub-area plan that described how the Snowden area should develop? This is a question that should have been addressed in the public hearing, but was totally ignored. Thank you for your time. I await your response.
Thank you, Mr. Gadway. I'll get back to online in a second. Go ahead. Thank you.
I'm Jack Runyon. I was here several weeks ago and talked about the viewpoint east of Glenwood, Washington. And actually, Jacob Anderson was going to see if there was any agreement between the viewpoint and the land trust and a county. And I haven't seen any answer anywhere or gotten any answer on that. I did go out there about 3 weeks ago, and I saw that the viewpoint sign has been removed, which Dan Christopher talked about. And did the county commissioners vote to remove that sign? Okay. Removing the sign took away from the viewpoint from all the citizens and businesses of the county. YGAP. Next question is YGAP, is that a Washington State program or is that a county program?
YGAP is an individual. It's not run by the county or the state. They're their own entity.
own entity. The county commissioners gave 25,000 to YGAP, which reaches only a small group of people, which are kids that are out of school afterwards. Whereas a few dollars being spent on a viewpoint would reach a large portion of the citizens of the county, visitors and businesses, hotel motel tax. Who is over the parks and recreation on the west end? Hotel motel tax again. And England Road needs a pit run rock in several places, enhances the emergency fire truck access. We county got grant money from Washington State to Klickitat County for forest improvements. And I added a letter that I sent 19 March 2021, which I received no answer for. And I've left both of these on the secretary's desk or copies thereof.
Do you know when that sign was removed by chance? How
Uh,
long after you were here last time, or any idea?
I have no idea. I just noticed that it was missing here, I think about 3 weeks ago. I went back out there and nothing's been done. And I don't know if the county commissioners sent a letter or anything to Washington Land Trust or
Nothing that I'm aware of.
working with the Indians or anything. Okay.
Thank you. So back online, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you. I noticed that there's no report from the update on the jail today, and I'm wondering if anything has reached you that you can share with us about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So back in the room. Sure, come forward.
I'm here to speak about cisterns and the truck and water program. My name is William Larson. I've lived in Goldendale for the past 9 years. I haven't spoken to the commissioners since I started this 4 years ago. I purchased 5 acres in Box Canyon when I moved here just down the road from some really close friends that my wife has known for over 20 years. We want this to be our forever home. Unfortunately for us, the estimate to drill a well on this property is 900 feet at the cost of $85,000, which is out of reach for us at this time. I believe a cistern is a viable option in our case. You say that I will use too much water because what it tells the average use in America is, and I will say that it is possible to conserve water if you try. My wife and I lived in an RV trailer for 3 years and lived on 40 gallons a week other than drinking water, which we use bottled spring water for. I do realize that we use a lot more water in the house. I'm just using that fact to illustrate that we do know how to conserve water. I do not understand why this has been made so difficult. I want to make things right with the county, and we were told that it would be best if we hired an engineer to design the system. And I needed an engineer anyway for my foundation. So I approached them and asked them to contact Avery Morgan to find out exactly what they wanted, and got a report back that they were requiring for what they were requiring, and the estimate of $18,800 from the engineers. That I think and I have a copy of that if you'd like it. It's not that complicated. It's a tank, a pump, and I have a filtration system that I guess I didn't need to have, but will take care of any concerns about the water quality in my home. I have Dusty Reed working on the cistern and pump, and I will get a licensed plumber to finish the job, but I can't do that until I get the placement permit. We have a 2,500 gallon cistern hooked up to a 3/4 horse pump that Dusty is installing. From that into a $1,300 Aquasana reverse osmosis water filtration system. I'm planning on using city water that is available behind City Hall for my main water supply, as to not inconvenience many neighbors that have commented that they would provide me water. Um, and there's also always bishops in case of an emergency, but they want over $1,100 just to fill the tank,
Hmm.
which is crazy. And all I'm trying to do here is build a home for me and my wife. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back online. Is there someone who'd like to give comment this morning? Raise your hand or unmute yourself. 7211.
Greg Wagner, Cease. Roger Nichols' question is a very good question, Commissioners. Why do you ignore the citizens' testimony? It's very important, yet you ignore the people. But this has been typical of this board. You make many decisions without the facts. That's what Mr. Anderson says. Many decisions without the facts. That's why the county's in the bad position it's in. And you continue to do it. On the May 7th, Carriger franchise agreement hearing, you failed to even read the franchise agreement hearing. Yet you, as a quasi-judicial board, were going to act like judges and render a decision. You rendered a decision on Wilson Monroe. I bet you didn't even read any of the paperwork on that. But yet you made a decision without the facts, just like old Mr. Anderson says. We make many decisions without the facts, or we'll get nothing done. Well, when you make decisions without the facts, what you get done is usually a bad decision. And that's pretty normal for our county. Let's talk about Mr. T's concern about the quarry. When Mr. Dean's quarry was originally permitted in 1995, it was done with a conditional use permit. And those conditions have been violated, yet nothing happens. Because in this county, once a conditional use permit is issued, it's ignored, it's forgotten about. And the people can do whatever they want. And that's what's happening at Mr. Dean's quarry. He continues to use our county quarry, which Lori Zoller said is depleted, and that's true. But he's dug a big hole in there and he's got a sediment pit. He's put a gate on it. It appears to be his property. And he's extracting rock from his quarry and carrying it out across our county property for free. We're not making a dime off of it. Yet we get $4 a truckload for every load of trash that gets dumped at Republic Landfill on their own property. Why aren't we getting $4 a truckload for every load of gravel that goes out of Dean's quarry across our property? Our county's got $1.75 million in debt, yet we don't even look at the sources of revenue that we could be getting money from. We just ignore that. I guess it's just because there's certain people can get by with this in the county. It's rules for me, but not for thee. And this rezone that's going to happen at the quarry, there is no aggregate overlay zone in our county zoning. So how can you rezone something to a zone that doesn't exist? This is just more favoritism. You have an energy overlay zone, you have a cluster agricultural overlay zone, and it has parameters and requirements in it. You can't rezone something to something that doesn't exist. This would be just more favoritism. And we heard Owen Anderson talk about how moratoriums take away people's rights.
Thank you,
That's the biggest
Mr. Wagner.
talk I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Back in the room? Anyone else yet? No? So back online. We're going to give the room a break for a little bit. 2662, Mr. Rizzi? No?
No, this is Tracy from Lyle.
Hi, Tracy. I saw Mr. Rizzi's picture up there, so I went to him. Good
Oh,
morning,
okay.
Tracy.
Good morning, commissioners. So I would like to bring up today, there was a request for relief. This is to the FCC, and it was done December 30th of 2019. And it says request for relief from power antenna height limits and service area limits of FCC rules and regulations, part 90.205. And basically it's a request for Sacker Butte to have more power. So 53.3, I think, instead of 17.9, which is the normal limit. And it's written for search and rescue. And hopefully you can find that online. Just look up request for relief from power antenna height, and then December 30th, 2019. It should come up on mine. So basically, this is saying that Stacker Butte has more power to supposedly help the first responders in the area get the communications. Well, this also would affect anything that goes on to Stacker Butte. So Jeff King, now is putting up cameras to detect fires and such. And I would assume that is going to that would have to go in to a FCC. That would have to be requested by the FCC because it's going to have more effects for radiation and whatever else that they check for, the more items that he has up there. And then this is for search and rescue. Jeff King is the director of emergency management, and he also gets paid $1,200 and some odd dollars from the sheriff's department for search and rescue. I believe this is a conflict of interest, and that he should not be able to hold two positions like that, because then he can speak for search and rescue in a document like this and get it through with his emergency management. Another thing I asked last week or the week before, if anywhere else besides 911 dispatch for any event, anything in our area, which Jeff King said no. Well, I wonder why there's repeaters on 4 different fire stations. So Bickleton, Rule 7, who am I missing? Klickitat, Rule 7, Bickleton. There's one more too. Why do they have repeaters? When Jeff King applies for the licensing for the radios, he says that they're not interconnected. On every one of them, they're not interconnected. Well, how could they not be interconnected if the repeaters are at the fire stations? And the last thing is Sherry asked who to contact.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Tracy. We've got your comments. Thank you. Room yet? Anybody know? Mr. Rizzi, good morning.
Good morning. As you can tell, I was away for a while, so I'm sure everybody had a wonderful time while I was gone. The thing that I've trying to catch myself up on is with the budget going on. I have a really weird feeling that we're going to get messed up because you have the budget's supposed to be completed by the end of this month. Yet 2 weeks later, you're going to have a meeting about a supplemental for the rest of the year, which is a very expensive supplemental. And now I'm also wondering what's going on with when we had all those different proposals for the jail. When we talked about the fact that a DOC was going to be very expensive, I was told no. But Dan said along with me that yes, it's probably going to cost about $1 million more. Well, now I'm hearing that it's going to be $1.5 million more. So again, all this money is coming out of all you taxpayers out there. They're paying taxes, and it's all about a vendetta that Jake Anderson and Lori had against the sheriff. I mean, this is ridiculous. So for a little spat, now it's going to cost all the taxpayers a ton of money to set up this DOC, which I know you're in the process and you're almost there, but now the cost when they did their analysis way back when was completely, utterly incorrect. And now it's going to cost us 1.5 more than what was allocated to the sheriff's office on, so you guys are just willy-nilly spending our money again. And again, this is stupid because it's all over your not being able to work with the sheriff. So I'm very upset about that. I'm upset that the budget is going longer, and you guys, you have so many things you got to put in. You're going to tell us there's a shortfall of 1.7 million? Well, I wonder how that's going to be. And then you add on this supplemental. This should be a lot of fun. So anyway, as a ratepayer, I'm very not happy with either one of the two on the council. I'm glad that Dan was trying to be up front with us and tried to tell us what was going on. But of course, because you guys have shut him out, he's the only one that was correct. So thank you very much, and welcome to Anthony being back.
Thank you, Anthony. Stay in the room. Okay, back online. Is someone else available online this morning? Seeing anyone? Good morning, Sherry Bosquet.
Good morning, commissioners. I'd like to finish Tracy's question of when Klickitat County or County of Klickitat or whatever you guys call yourselves. I see it several different ways. You guys get grants to do things to supposedly help the people. And we all have, I think all of us taxpayers have realized grants just don't grow on trees. They come from our pockets somehow, some way. So you get these grants, you're supposed to help the people, and then there's no accountability where that money goes to, who it's serving, what it's doing. And then I heard this story about this. Well, let's not get, with my precious 3 minutes of freedom of speech. There was a shutdown of cell towers in an area. Only emergency services had it. Nobody else had it. So y'all are just building a system for your own empire on our money. So now let's go to special favors. James Dean, it's already quarrying up that hill. Let's not fool each other. I live here. It's already quarrying it. You're just trying to hurry up and get that done, but there's no accountability there. And oh yeah, who do we go to when you guys aren't accountable for the money you spend? If it's our money or grant money or whatever money, who do we go to? Is it the military? I mean, who do we go to? Because how do we keep you guys accountable? It's true. You're out there just spending our money. Okay, special favors, 1 minute, 37 seconds. Under canvas, located in a place that should never be located. And let's talk about the water. I think the potable water could have been a favor for them, but who's to say? And this poor guy just wants to get drinking water. And you're going to allow a resort of 95 units, 300 to 400 people a day to then they're only supposed to get 5,000 gallons a day, and it mathematically can't happen. And we all know that when the minimum state standard is 35 gallons a day per person. So that can't happen. So we'll do some shady stuff there, favoritism there. And then this one poor guy who just wants to live off his land can't get a cistern. Come on now. These guys are going to truck water up that road all day on that road. And those people and those school buses and those cows. You don't look out for the public. Wilson Monroe says that, everything is done in special favors for whatever friends you have, whatever corporations. You're cowtailing to the renewables. That's going to be a super fun cleanup for the generations to come. It doesn't help our grid. It only disables us. Who are you guys? And who do you really work for? I mean, I'm getting to that point. Who do you really work for? Because you put the people's lives in danger. You put us in danger. That Oak Ridge Road, hundreds of cars. Oh, by the way, taxpayers will pay for that too in favor for under canvas. So who do you work for? And who do we go tell when you don't work for us?
Thank you, Sherry. Back in the room. Online. Unmute yourself or please raise your hand. Getting close. If there's no one online, I'll move to the room with our favorite person that likes to be last. He tries.
I have tried to be last. Everybody do their little comments.
Good
What
morning.
you need to do is you need to tell them it's 9:29 and we only go till 9:30, so you got about 35 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that works too. Hey, whatever works, right?
We've cut your time. Now
Oh,
we're.
you're fine.
Yeah, I know. I'm cut down. I can make this even quicker. So,
Oh, good.
yeah. Well, I'm thankful for getting a ballot finally.
Yep.
I was surprised to get it in the mail. It's nice to have it here.
Mhm.
And then I found out I brought the wrong pen. So, Andrew Smith, Klickitat County. Yes, it's been all good here. I'm just happy. Hopefully everybody can vote, register to vote. Make sure you do vote. Please do not send your ballot in by US mail. Have a friend take it to whatever drop box you can find. I don't know where they're all at, but anyway, good luck on voting. Good luck on the jail. Hopefully you can hire enough people to handle the jail. The lookout sign, since I've been back and forth on that way, I haven't seen it for 30 days. It flat disappeared. So that was kind of interesting on the sign. Now somebody's mentioned it. I thought it was just me that didn't see it, but I've looked for it. Anyways, have fun, good luck, and budget. Good luck on the budget. Hopefully we can work out some deals there. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll ask one more time online and then we'll close out public speaking. Oh, Scott, did you have something? So Scott's in the room. I'm going to call on our planning director, Scott. He's been listening this morning, I think.
I'm sorry, I wasn't quick enough, so I apologize to Mr. Smith.
That's
I'll
okay.
let him go last. Mr. Thies made some excellent comments and I appreciate them. He's also submitted some very thoughtful testimony on the James Dean Quarry issue that will not only be included in that record, but is going to go into our thinking as we address comprehensive plan in general. I'd just like to remind you that you are the deciding body on the James Dean proposal. So I'd suggest that you try to keep your comments off of that specifically and maybe focus more on comprehensive plan, general, the overlay questions, which Mr. Thies raised some very, very good questions about. And I'd appreciate getting a copy of your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. So we will close to public testimony and move to commissioners. Would you like to start, or Mr. Anderson?
I always get to start. Why not?
No, you don't. I did last week.
To the comp plan questions, and I'll be about as generic as possible. Do I see an emergency to update the comp plan for one person when we're going through the comp plan process? My answer is no. I think there needs to be a process that everybody is held to, but I'm just a mere mortal man. There was another question answered on if I agree with that definition of public interest. My answer to that is again no. But wasn't a lot of discussion on that one. That was kind of done quickly. Viewpoint sign, I have no idea why it disappeared. I will ask Public Works when they do their update on if they can give us an idea on why it disappeared. Or if they got directive from a member of the board to remove it, or if they just removed it on their own, or if they know anything about it being removed, because I'm kind of curious as well. Roger Nichols, no, I don't have a jail update. I get the same jail update you get. If there's no jail update on a Tuesday meeting, I get no jail update. Potable water, yes, Mr. Larson, I'm frustrated with the process. I worried that when we were going through it, that whole you have to have an engineer could be weaponized. I would like to see some verbiage in that policy on what is the minimum allowable. I understand that there's a maximum, which could be $18,000 for an engineer to design some fancy system. But what is the minimum? And I think we as a county should work better with our people to advise our people when they come in to get a permit on here's the process. This is, you can acquire water from your friends, you can acquire water from the city, you can acquire water from bishops, and not just, oh, you have to get water from the city. Or, well, here's the minimum for putting an engineer. You can even do it yourself. You can draw the drawings yourself. Or you can go to an engineer. Don't just say you have to go to an engineer when you can actually draw the drawings yourself. They need to be able to do a better job advising you on what is possible. And I'm not saying it's just public health, planning, building, everybody can do a better job working with the citizens. I can't tell you how many people have come in and complained to me that they just subdivided a bunch of 20-acre parcels so their family could live on their property. They had no idea we had cluster ag. Or they would have put 2-acre parcels and kept the rest in farmland. But when they went up there, they were never advised of that, or they did it. Look, we need to do a better job advising the people when they come in on what their options are so that they can make an educated decision. Anyway, I'll get off of that. Greg, Dean Quarry, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Mr. Rizzi, thank you for paying attention. I'm glad there is a small handful of folks that are actually paying attention every week. I hoped when we did the Zoom that we would get more participation. We didn't. I hoped when we started recording there would be more people paying attention to what's going on in their government and how votes go down and who votes for what and when. Unfortunately, they're not. So that leads into Sherry's question is how do you fix it? Well, you have to actually get people to pay attention. You have to get people to pay attention to the actual words that come out of your elected officials' mouths and not believe propaganda garbage that they read in the newspaper or on the internet. And then you can see how your elected officials voted. And if you don't like that, you can replace them. And that's how elections work. Mr. Smith, thank you for your comment. And that's all I have.
Mr. Anderson, are you going to comment this morning?
Yes, of course. I'm still doing a little bit of research if you don't mind going first.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Teese, good to see you. You've been with us a long time, and I don't know, were you around when we did the original comp plan and worked through that process? And I remember that, and it's a big process. So, and it is, I hope to make it less painful this time. I hope when we go through, and I'm thankful for Scott that we're moving towards that quickly. It's necessary. We're behind and we need to update that. And mineral use will be an update in that plan. So I look forward to working on that. And thank you for highlighting that. Mr. Gadway, I believe it was weighed on all sides. I appreciate our planning commission. I appreciate their conversations with each other, and they don't always agree with each other on the board either. I've seen them work. I've participated with that board, and I know what that's like to work in a board that large where you have to bounce off of each other and come to a conclusion. And it isn't just both sides. Sometimes it's multifaceted. Sometimes there's a lot of sides to consider. And us for commissioners, if there was a feeling that somehow that was a quick decision, as a commissioner, you do have to work as a board, but also you have your own responsibility to read those documents prior to coming in and being seated in this chair and weigh out your decisions before you get here sometimes on big subjects. So I do feel like I did do my due diligence and looked at all sides and weighed out what that meant for the highest public use and the best for the public. And I know it's unhappy for some and it would be unhappy the other way if it went the other way, but at some point in time, you have to make a decision. You have to move on with the business of the county. And it's not always popular. The signs, I was up there a week ago and noticed the sign was gone. So yes, we'll engage with Public Works and also the two entities that are working on that. Maybe Jake has more information on that. It could have been one of them that took the sign down because they have to address public safety up there. So we'll find out where the sign went. And I enjoy stopping there. And Mr. Nichols, the jail. Again, we do talk about the jail on Zoom and get updates, or from staff we have updates, but as commissioners, we all can individually seek out that information and become informed. Nobody keeps anything silent or private. Everybody can ask. In any department, you can walk up and talk with them any day on what's happening, and they'll give their commissioner a private update that you can bring back to this chamber and work with each other. The jail is moving forward on track, just like the last update that we had last week, and we're pretty well done with any hiring necessities that we had to take care of, and we're moving towards getting people in place and actually having what they need over there to go to work. So it's a positive on the jail. Cisterns, I agree, Mr. Williams, that needs to be looked at. I was shocked when it came forward, what you were going through. I had no idea when we approved that use that it would not be beneficial to the public. I thought we were doing a good thing, and I'm shocked where this has gone. I do have some questions out to the health department, but I also think that it's going to take some hard discussions at the commissioners level, that we revisit that and see what happened, and maybe realign that if we can. So it is useful. We've always prided ourselves on being landowner friendly, and that did not turn out that way with that document. Mr. Wagner. I think for myself with Mr. Wagner and Tracy and Sherry, when we talk as commissioners, sometimes the things are negative, the comments coming in, and I do hope we can separate that out. I do feel like I do my due diligence. I do work things. I do ask questions. I spend tons of hours on all kinds of subjects every week looking for the answers. Sometimes it takes longer to get to the bottom so that we can get you a correct answer, but I hope you're never slighted and say that these things don't happen. It's hard to turn a ship sometimes and get it recorrected, but I just want you to know that I do hear you. And Mr. Wagner, I do spend time with you. I don't spend as much personal time with Sherry or Tracy, but I do take notes and I do ask questions and work on things. So I appreciate you chiming in and keeping those things on the forefront, and we are working on them. Mr. Rizzi, that conversation went incredibly wrong. That was full of misinformation, misnumbers, misconceptions of what the jail budget is. Those are no true numbers that have ever been recorded anywhere in our budget process. If you heard those on the street or somewhere else, it's not valid. I would encourage you that if you want to know those answers, actually reach out to the people, reach out to me. I'll help you get those true answers that are on the documents and where we're going. That was an incredibly exaggerated number that's not happening with the jail. And the misconception that the sheriff is at odds with us. The sheriff has worked with us. He has worked with staff. He's worked to help correct the situation. He's been very helpful. So is his staff, to help our staff move forward to build the new DOC, Department of Corrections. And the misconception that this was all a vendetta between Mr. Anderson and myself is, again, a misconception, and should not be said in public. It's not true. This was done because of legalities and things that happened at the sheriff department, at the jail, that it threw it into legal ramifications that at that point, by law, the commissioners are required to step in and start assisting. And that's exactly what we did. Nothing else, nothing more. There's never been a time that this board ever maligned the sheriff in public or behind the scenes that I've heard. So I hope we can get that correct. And you can also reach out to the auditor, the treasurer, and the finance people, Jen Neal specifically, to get specific answers on what those budgets are. So we've got those hard numbers down, and we're not past timeframes. There's been many years in the past that our commissioners have signed that budget on December 31st. So doing due diligence is always good. And if it takes a little longer, so be it. But thank you, and I will turn it over to Mr.
Madam
Anderson.
Chair?
No, I don't want a
ju-
rebuttal argument. And I'm sorry. We have our time just like we give the public, and oh, poor you, you
And
don't
I'm
get
the
to speak.
contentious one. I was just gonna ask staff if the public health update is concerning the potable water, so this gentleman might want to be able to attend.
Okay.
If that's the case, I
No,
don't know
it's
that
not.
I'm the contentious one, remember?
No, it's not.
Did we,
Madam Chair, are you ready for me?
did we schedule them for
Let Mr.
potable water?
Christopher finish with his question.
We've reached out to them, but apparently they have not scheduled for potable water, so.
And they will. That's a subject we need to have with them and then have them come in. So, okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, in response, Mr. Thies, while I wish I could respond, this is a matter before the board, so we cannot respond. And I would like to thank our planning director, Mr. Edelman, for giving an explanation and understanding with regards to that. Mr. Gadway, the Board of County Commissioners was provided all of the documents from the Planning Commission. We also can go back and review the recordings of the Planning Commission. And I will be the first to say I take my position very thoroughly, and I do my research when it comes to reading and reviewing all of the available public information with regards to making a decision, and I did that. So while we may not respond to each public comment, we do take it all into consideration. That is part of our job. Mr. Runyon, thanks again for coming back. I need to follow up again with Public Works on the viewpoint. I was not aware that the sign came down. I have also sent a message to Columbia Land Trust, Nate Ulrich, with that, looking for any information I can get with regards to the sign. And then with regards to the Parks and Rec on the west end, and I'm going to do some more research on England Road as well. But the 25, and it's not 25,000 we give to WAGAP, it's 20,000 that we've given to WAGAP, and that's for the Community Youth Center in White Salmon, and that's something that we've done many years in a row. We do provide money to public parks in Klickitat County that are county owned. The one that you're mentioning is not a county park, it's on Columbia Land Trust land. Mr. Nichols, the only thing I can say in jail update is we are still making progress. It takes a while to do the background check and psychological evaluation, but the update I got just in passing was that is proceeding and it's moving forward. And I personally have a hope that we will have the Department of Corrections up and running by mid-November. That's my personal hope. Mr. Larson, I did have a chance to speak with staff, and they said that you've not submitted anything to them yet, but they are willing to work with you. You said it yourself that the system diagram, the way it was written, is that it was recommended that you hire a licensed engineer to draw up that system diagram. That is not a requirement. The first thing I would do if I was you is draw up a diagram yourself, or have someone that's a friend draw up a diagram. It doesn't have to be ridiculously complex. I know when I built my own house, I did my own drawing by hand for my septic system, and that passed through the same people at the Environmental Health Department. And you just need to make sure that you answer the question, which you already did, of where the water's coming from. You don't need a $6,000 water availability study done by an engineering firm who'd be glad to charge you for it. If all you really need to do is say, I'm getting it from the city of Goldendale, here's their agreement, and that's what that piece of that document is for. If you would like, I would be happy to sit in on a conversation with Environmental Health and you. If you'd like someone to facilitate that, I'd be happy to. What I can tell you, though, is that our staff is not weaponizing the system. That is not their goal. That is not their intent. That is not what they do. We have hardworking, dedicated staff who are there for the public health and welfare of the county. And that's what their job is to do. And so we do need information, and we need you to fill out the documents. It doesn't have to be overboard. When I read, and thank you for sending along that engineer's report, and it sounds like we need to have a conversation between the engineering companies as well as public health, because we don't need that ridiculous amount of information. Tracy, I would recommend that you give our Director King a call. I can tell from what you were saying that there was a lot of errors and omissions in how you were explaining it. I can tell you that by adding the cameras is not increasing the radiation or the power outputs of the system. It's all backhauled on existing systems that are already there. So give Jeff a call. Now, the other thing that you mentioned was Mr. King holding 2 positions. We have multiple directors within Klickitat County that hold multiple positions. And some of them do get bonuses, or not bonuses, but additional compensation for the additional workload. What I can say is that Director King works extremely hard. He is always on. He rarely takes vacations, and he works his tail off, and he's worth every penny that we pay him. Mr. Rizzi, I would happen to agree with pretty much everything that Chairwoman Zoller stated. Those are not accurate numbers that you're stating and putting out into the public. I know you've been gone, so but we have been in the budget process. Please go back and review the videos. You can get caught back up. You can find exactly where it's at for the budget discussion for the Department of Corrections. You can also look into where your numbers are coming from so that next time you can come forward with more accurate information. Yes, the budget is going to cost more, but you also have to understand that you were also talking about 2 different things. The first thing you were talking about was the budget for 2025, and that is what we're going through right now. On the same time, we're doing a supplemental budget, the 3rd supplemental budget for 2024. Those are different budget years. And what we found from the budget year and supplemental that's been put forward is that the jail is already costing more money and has been costing more money. It's things like they didn't bill for medical services or pay the bills for the medical services over multiple years. And now we're having to get caught up on that. When you don't pay your bills in the year that they're due, it skews the budget for the next year. And so then we all know that things cost more on top of that. So we're having to get caught up on all of that. What we're hoping to be able to do, though, is that the things that are going to cost more money, like ensuring that we have adequate medical care in the jail, we're working on getting the grant so that it can start as soon as possible to cover those costs. So my goal is by the end of 2025 to have the overall jail budget of what it costs the taxpayers of Klickitat County out of the general fund. So the actual cost of the county be less than what it used to be based on the grant programs that we're actually applying for. And Sherry, when the cell towers go down and yet emergency services still has access to them, that's what you want. It's called AT&T FirstNet. It's a federal program. It was created when after 9/11 and the Twin Towers went down. And what you had is every person in New York City was trying to make a phone call. And what ended up happening is nobody who actually needed, the first responders, the people that needed to be there, didn't have access to the communication system. So the federal government created the FirstNet system so that when there are actual national emergencies or even local emergencies, the first responders will have priority access over the internet and over the cell signals. And that is very, very important, because the last thing you want is to have them not be, because once communication goes down, response time, everything falls apart. So that's very important. And I'm glad that FirstNet was still working when AT&T towers went down. And honestly, the special favors, there are no special favors. Nobody gets special dispensation from the county. That's not how it works. The county government, the county staff doesn't give out special favors. It's something, there is a process for everything. I know you love to talk about under canvas and that we gave out special favors. The county commissioners did. The county commissioners delegated that duty to someone else. It was not the county commissioners. That was done by a hearings examiner, like nearly every other county in Washington state does when it comes to complex legal issues, because hearings examiners are lawyers who deal with this. County commissioners can, I feel, work on a lot of things that are in the community interest, comprehensive plans, stuff like that, things that are talking about policies and goals for the most part. But when it comes to things that are going to get appealed, you want the people who are writing the findings of fact to have legal background. And that goes with all conditional use permits, zone changes. Zone changes are a little bit different because I think that should fall within the Board of County Commissioners because that is, you're weighing more the public interest when it comes to that versus just what somebody legally can already do. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, so the consent agenda. Do you want to do the?
Move that we pass the consent agenda with one item.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Payroll.
Move that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $1,896.27. Or sorry, let me revamp that. My brain's still a little wound up. $1,896,027.74. And the payroll benefit warrants the amount of $0 for the date ending October 21st, 2024.
I will second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Commissioner miscellaneous. We have about 3
Madam
minutes.
Chair, I know we added the letter of support to the Bridge Authority to the agenda. I just wanted to make sure that you guys got the draft copy of it that was sent. I sent it to BOCC. I don't know if it got sent to you guys. But what that is it's the letter of support for the Bridge Infrastructure Program grant for a total of $530-something million.
Yes, I saw it in the packet and I've reviewed it, Jake. Thank you. Okay. Any comment? Any updates? Anything, Mr. Christopher? No? Okay. So we have department update with Public Works Director Jeff. I don't see him yet. Jeff Hunter. So we have 3 minutes. He'll hear us and he'll be heading down that hallway very quickly, I'm sure. Chick, for the public's sake, the letter of support, where is that request being given to for that 500 and some thousand?
That 500 million, and that goes to the federal government. It's a grant for the Bridge Infrastructure Program. We had turned in an application last year. We did not get the funding last year because we did get the $200 million funding for a different grant program, and they're kind of tied together. So we're going back for another shot at the apple.
How do you feel your chances are this year? Bad question.
The bridge was highly ranked last year. There were 14 projects last year that did not get funding that were ranked highly, and I think there were 11 projects that got funded last year. So the most important ones got funded last year, or had the most political horsepower behind them. So we're hoping we're in line this year for it, and this would close that funding gap. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the press release that came out on the bridge and the increased cost of the bridge based on a green sheet analysis. It's not at the 30% design, but it's what we needed to do in order to put in for this grant application. And the two major reasons for the prices going up is the heavy industries, heavy construction costs have went up nearly 50% inflation over the course of the last 2 years. It is mind-numbing and mind-blowing the percentage of cost increases. And then we also found out that the current bridge is not sitting on bedrock. And when they went down and did the geotechnical evaluation, they found that bedrock was about 90 feet further down. And so that is going to make much larger foundations and much larger piers. It ended up changing the number of piers that we're going to have and changing how the bridge is going to be designed because of that depth to bedrock is so large. We're actually going to have longer spans on the bridge and then make sure, and one of the other ways is we're going to go with steel girders rather than a box concrete segmental bridge. Those steel girders will be able to be put up easier and faster in the gorge, because when you read all the information from the first time they built the bridge, trying to do concrete in the Columbia River Gorge in the wintertime is really damn difficult with the winds and the rain and the snow and everything else. And so the steel girders can just be set in place, and it'll keep us on schedule for a 2029 start date. Or 2029 completion is the goal.
Amazing process. Yeah. Good morning.
A lot of money.
I don't know if you were listening about the sign or. Kind of. Okay. We were working.
Thank you. What I had.
Okay, you did the thing on the consent agenda, I believe. Wasn't paying that close. Okay, thank you. We don't have any pay estimates or anything, so we'll go right into.
I got a side question. I know we're limited to how much work the county can do, but why is that like a floor covering of a bathroom just something our contractor construction guys can't do, won't do? Would it not be a cost savings?
That one is very complicated because you have to go up the walls. So we typically don't do floor covering. You have to have all the tools. And it is kind of an art form to actually lay carpet, get it to stretch and get it. Also,
Carpet I can understand, but I'm thinking this is a bathroom, so I'm guessing it's linoleum.
it is linoleum.
And then throw some little base along the bottom there, but if you're rolling it up the
You're
wall.
rolling it up the wall, so it's a little different. And to be honest with you, we had problems with that. That's why we're replacing it. So
Okay.
for the price, it's probably, we're better off because we get a warranty. We also get the linoleum warranted. And since we're not a provider, we won't, the manufacturer probably wouldn't warranty it if we installed it. Because we're not actually a certified installer.
Okay.
Is that in the big bathroom downstairs?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. On the construction side, the contractor's still working towards finishing up on Sundale and Old Highway 8. Still in place, replacing some rock surfacing, erosion control items, hydro seeding. On road design, Sunnyside Road overlay, working on those final edits to get that ad ready set of plans put together and out for ad. Bridge repair bundles, consultant still working through the plan, 60% plans. Bickleton overlay, I'm going to have a board packet for next week's agenda for an advertisement date for that project. White plastic edge lines, final review is with WashDOT, waiting to hear back so we can get that one out to add. And curve warning signs and road safety planner, kind of the same area we were last week, still working through the details.
Okay, on the maintenance side, Goldale and Bickleton are still Goldale and Bickleton shops are working on the Bickleton Highway in preparation of the project Seth just talked about. White Salmon, again, we're grading roads and brushing. That's what we do during this time of the year, and hopefully not in preparation of snow, but that is coming. We'll get to that here in a minute. The Superior Courtroom is still a few minor items left. They have court this week. Events, the Harvest Festival went well. We have a birthday party this Friday in the exhibit building and a birthday party this Sunday in Dallasport. So, people like big spaces for birthday parties. Everything else is pretty much the same. Dallasport, everything. And Annex 4, we installation of the fiber for the communication is this Thursday. We are working with IT. They're going to do some of the splice, or we're getting a new fiber place, so there'll be they won't be losing their video conferencing and that type of stuff. That's been a joint project with us and ITs, but it's worked really well. Aaron paid for it, so that's even better yet for Robin. Speaking of snow removal contracts, that time those open up here at on the 4th. They are out to bid for both of our facilities. And then we'll see where we go from there, depending on what the cost is. And it's time to schedule 6-year hearings. So with that said, we bring forward a board packet next week for the scheduling. We only have, I don't know what the board's preference is, if it's Tuesdays, if it is Tuesdays, Thursdays, if it is Tuesday, if it's in person in White Salmon or Zoom. Typically the board we do 2 hearings, one in the morning or one in the afternoon at 1 and one in the evening to catch everybody. And we've typically done them Zoom, but that's at the discretion of the board. So we would like some direction on when the board would like to see them scheduled. I know the week of the 19th is not an option. So please keep in mind, we want to get the 6-year approved and everything before the budget, because we have to have the annual. And the annual is the first year of the 6-year. 6 years of planning document, not a finance document. The annual is a finance document.
Do either of you have preferences?
Put it on the agenda and put it in the newspaper. Let's go.
Is the Tuesday before the 19th enough time to post? Is that 2 weeks out?
I don't think that, no.
At
At this point, I think it would be the 19th would be the earliest you could hold it, so.
Yeah, so
With
now
the
we're pushing it
advertisement.
to, good call. I think so. Which is not usually the greatest week in the world, because it's the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes, because we're heading to holidays.
And a lot of people.
26.
26, yeah. So that's 2 weeks.
And then I would just reread through the posting requirements.
Oh, no, I think it's 2 weeks, right?
Could be 2 weeks.
2 weeks ad. So if we bring it in next week, we've already talked about it. It can go in the paper on the 30th. And then it could be in on the 6th.
Yeah, you could do the 12th.
And we could do the 12th.
Just, I would advise to read through the posting requirements.
We will.
Sure that we catch everything.
We will. We'll make sure no 1937 weird.
Law stipulation, yeah.
Anyway, yes, so the 12th it is then. Both hearings on the 12th?
That would be my take.
Oh,
Works for me.
okay.
In person here via Zoom for anybody else.
So one at 1 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock?
Mhm.
Again, I'm looking for direction.
I could do 6.
Yep, that's how we usually do it.
Fine.
Okay, so that's what we'll do.
A bunch of people.
We will post the 6-year we'll give the 6-year.
Oh.
Which with the 6 years, nothing to do with that, but
No.
that's a
And the
extra
supplemental
hearing.
budget will take all of about 10 minutes, so.
Okay. So we will post it on, we will post the 6-year on, after next week. As soon as the board signs the resolution to advertise, we will post it on the website at that time. Technically, I don't want to post it before that time because the board may say, whoa, wait a second, we don't want that. So
Elise, do you have any times on that supplemental budget? Was there requested times? I don't see any on my calendar. Okay.
okay,
Perfect.
1 and 6. Okay, we'll have the board packet this week.
Thank you.
That covers our update.
Any questions? Nothing for you, Mr. Anderson? Road Department, you good?
Nothing here.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, can we get an answer to the sign or whatever you know on the sign or any kind of information on the sign?
Yeah, we can give you a quick, we'd like to give a little, we like to have everything well prepared, so we'd have maps and everything. But we'll give you a quick synopsis and we can follow up next week if you.
Okay.
We had this conversation, a citizen brought it in, and if I remember the exact thing, he said either fix the road or take down the sign because he was concerned about liability. We looked into it. We do not have ownership on either parts of the road. One part is the Columbia Land Trust, and the other part is the tribe. Seth contacted the tribe, and he will respond to what the tribe has told us.
Yeah, the tribe recommended removing the sign because they weren't going to do any updating to it. So they asked us to remove the sign
Okay,
from our road.
So the sign was removed.
okay. So they have one way in and Columbia Land Trust has the other way in.
No.
It,
Columbia Land Trust goes a little ways in.
but
That's
then
why I wish I
stops.
had the map.
Most
And
of
it
it's on
stops.
tribe.
The actual site is on the tribal
Okay.
property.
Okay.
And we'll bring a map in next time
Okay.
so everybody's aware of how.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense because I would be worried if the tribe is not updating the viewpoint for safety and they tell us to remove the sign because they're not updating the viewpoint for safety and we choose to not update or not remove the sign. Now, my question would be, are we 1% responsible when somebody falls off the cliff?
That's how we viewed it. So that's why the sign was removed. If, in the past, nobody brought it to our attention, Commissioner
Out of sight, out of
Christopher
mind, right?
yes,
Yeah.
is well
But now
aware.
you know, so.
Yes,
Right, thank you.
thank you.
And I'll follow up with a discussion about the tribe, about the value of that viewpoint for the community. I'll go ahead and have that conversation, see what we can do.
Good luck with that one.
I'm hopeful. Okay, thank
I'm
you.
realistic.
Oh, yeah. Got some pictures for y'all. Sorry, Commissioner Anderson, I didn't know you were online. I had just some stuff for y'all to look at.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Today we're going to start off with economic development.
Good morning. For the Klickitat mill site, we're still in the process of contract negotiations for that, so we'll continue to monitor this situation. Affordable housing, we're waiting on the last application to be turned in, and then we'll proceed with the board appointments. There is some interest in an affordable housing component to a senior center, housing project located in the Trout Lake area. So we're kind of researching options for that. And now that the $0.09 are available to be used for housing this year, it's going to open up a few opportunities for that direction. The ADO grant writer grant from the Department of Commerce, we applied for that grant and we're awaiting to hear news for round 2 funding. This grant would support grant writing services for projects on the county's infrastructure project list, as well as the grant writer for Mount Adams Institute's AmeriCorps grant, and that accounts for 1/3 of their funding. So we're hopeful that we are awarded. City engagement. The city of Bingen will be giving an update on their water main extension project at tonight's KCPTA meeting. We're working with the city of Goldendale and the Goldendale Observatory to identify potential funding sources for an ADA accessible ramp. And Lyle has requested assistance in finding funding for their community signage, and we're looking at potentially using one of the USDA rural community programs for that. Columbia Gorge Regional Airport, we are working through the various subject to award criterias necessary to begin disbursement of grant funds. And we're looking to do an ask of the IRC in December, and we're currently on track for that. Question?
Where's this ADA ramp? Is this at the observatory?
Yes, so it would not only be going into the building, but because the roof.
Oh, this is that roof project? Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions?
Where are we at in contract negotiations on the Klickitat mill site? It seems like they've been ongoing for a while. What's the holdup?
The contract is at the PA's office being reviewed.
Has it been there very long?
About a month.
Okay, thank you.
It's moving though. I had conversations yesterday, so it's moving. It's not languishing.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
So for natural resources, this is gonna take a minute.
Yeah,
so-
long update today. I'm
It's
sorry.
very long.
So, I got some lead entity updates for the first time in a while. The Salmon Recovery Funding Board met in late September to discuss legislative and programmatic changes and updates into award funds to the regional entities. We can't share much yet about official funding numbers, statewide, but as stated in previous updates, the Klickitat lead entity will be able to fully fund its 3 projects for a total of $955,571, of which $223,357 was the new riparian funding. Now, other updates from that surfboard meeting and other surfboard events that the lead entity has attended since is updates to the riparian grant program and 2 new grant programs, one for monitoring, the other for fish passage barriers. So on riparian, so it was a new grant program that allocated $23 million for riparian specific projects in the 23 to 25 biennium. And since the rollout, there have been a lot of questions about not only whether the fund's going to be around for very long, but also the lack of clear guidance and rules in the fund's use. The funds, it was a part of the Climate Commitment Act passed in 21 by Jay Inslee, which, basically, took emission auction funds and used that to invest into like climate and conservation projects. Well, that might be overturned in the upcoming election, which would, the funds would cease to exist. Additionally, when the funding came out, there was a lot of confusion about what constituted a riparian project, what's allowable in stream. A lot of those questions got answered, but there are still conservation or conversations ongoing, roundtables that the Klickitat lead entity is participating in to try to refine the process and rules and prioritizations, supposing that funding is still going to be here, or maybe if more funding is going to be available from different sources for like similar purposes in different grant rounds. So 2 new programs that was mentioned. One is a fish passage barrier program. It's for lead entities to conduct a comprehensive fish passage barrier assessment, which the Klickitat lead entity has not done. We have not done a comprehensive barrier assessment. What we have done is our localized barrier assessments, most recently an assessment of barriers in the White Salmon River watershed by Underwood Conservation District, and it was funded in 2009, and I think it was completed in 2011. Now, most of the sponsors in the lead entity area are relatively familiar with the big fish passage barriers, Pine Creek being a real obvious one that's being dealt with. But they have been interested, and they've noted that a comprehensive assessment covering, I don't know if it's going to be every single barrier, right? But a comprehensive assessment could be beneficial. After talking with folks from the state, they even stated that this assessment could be done in-house by the lead entity coordinator, which would take the burden off the sponsors because there's going to be a training component with the program. So there's already a fish passage barrier inventory that WDFW has online. It's dated. What could happen is that the lead entity could just evaluate that and, drive around and look at culverts and whatnot. Either way, there's an opportunity for the lead entity to discover lesser known fish passage barriers that might turn into future projects down the line. Program's still under development. They have a draft manual, and we'll let the board know more when the state makes things official. So the second is, monitoring, as you know, Commissioner Anderson's traditionally funded by standard surfboard dollars. Well, they cut it off and they made it its own program. I think it's roughly $1 million available. The catch is the program is only available for regional entities, which we are not. We get our funding from the Mid and the Lower Columbia regional entities. So the lead entity has been talking to the state and talking to our regional entities. Part of larger discussions to either work closer with our regional entities to see if there's a way we can obtain regional funding, which, so for example, obviously they know they give us funding and that's written into their provisos, but their specific strategies don't know ways in which the Klickitat lead entity could obtain regional funding or whatever else the Klickitat lead entity needs to do to obtain regional funding. There's a targeted investment program, which is a big pot of money that's only available for regional entities. There were talks in the past of, given our size, us being our own regional entity, however that would work. That fizzled out for some reason.
So just to clarify, you said the word monitoring. Monitoring what?
Monitor fish population.
Okay.
Right. It's again, it's traditionally funded in standard surfboard, but I guess it's not sexy, I guess, right? So it doesn't get funded. So they cut it from the standard funding source and they made it its own program. So what I handed y'all were two projects that some good news that the Klickitat lead entity assisted in funding that have been deemed completed by the sponsor and the state. So the first one is the Rattlesnake Gulch Fish Passage and Restoration project. It was a 2021 Mid-Columbia Fisheries project that involved the removal of a small concrete dam and the replacement of 2 road culverts with bridges, assisting with 3.6 miles of fish passage for steelhead on Rattlesnake Gulch, where it enters into Swell Creek. Along with removal of fill, railroad ties, installation of woody debris, and planting along the riparian area. The project took place along Lover's Lane, south of Oaxaca, where Rattlesnake Gulch forks into, like I said, right before it empties into Swell Creek. And the pictures show some before and after photos. Right?
This is the after.
Yeah, that's the after. Yeah, so you had 2 culverts, took them out, put bridges in. There was a dam, right? They busted that out. Now it's wasn't a very big dam, but they blew it out.
I guess my curiosity is, are they trying to say this is fish passage?
No, that's the before.
This is what it looks
That's
like
the
now.
before. There should be the bridges in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the culverts are generally considered not very good for fish passage.
Well, yeah, and there's no water.
Yeah.
So
There's
seasonal or is this year round?
It's slightly you say slightly perennial. There are some other pictures of the culverts and they are blowing through with water. Right. So I just unfortunately gave you all the pictures where they're dry.
Okay. So they're technically saying the fish go through when there's water, spawn in the pools, the baby fish live in the pools until there's water again, and then go.
Yes.
Got it.
And then the second one, I brought up this project before.
Do they really think that dam is a barrier to fish?
Yeah, or for steelhead, I guess, they couldn't get over it, or maybe it was just something where it was there, right, so they could improve it while they were doing work. But the big barrier were the culverts.
Any idea what that dam was originally?
No idea. And the map is not very good. I tried to look for a better map, but it's right where it empties into Swell Creek. But this was a project funded in 2021. Total cost at the time was $130,000 with $111,000 of surfboard funding. So the second project, I brought it up before. It was the White Salmon River Conservation Assessment. It was a 2021 Underwood Conservation District sponsored project that assessed the long-term conservation options of former Condit Dam site, Northwestern Lake. About 205 acres along 5 river miles. The land was owned by Pacificor, who made it known that they wished to divest of the land, which made a conservation plan not straightforward because the parcel included 47 cabin lots in both Skamania and Klickitat counties, leased from Pacificor to Conla, the cabin owners of Northwestern Lake, which had a right of first refusal for purchase of the lots. Those parcels, with the help of this Underwood project and the help of the Klickitat and Skamania County planning departments, were finalized with around 34 acres being cabin land, which will presumably be bought by the cabin owners, along with the Forest Service acquiring Northwestern Park, leaving around 170 acres of conservation around the former Condit Dam site, which needed a long-term owner. The Conservation Fund, a national conservation organization, has been identified as the primary organization pursuing short-term holding of the property, after which the site will find a long-term owner, whoever that might be. If anyone's interested in any information about this, they're free to contact the department, and we can give them the pictures and the maps and whatnot about the projects. Lastly, on the lead entity front, grant rounds quickly approaching. We soon plan to begin talks on updating the strategy. We got to set up our schedule for the grant round, continuing sponsor and landowner outreach, checking up on projects that are currently ongoing. That'll all be taking place very soon. So that's all I got on lead entity. Any questions?
You're busy. That's good.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit more about the comprehensive assessment? That has been done by UCD, and I believe Eastern has done it. I'm pretty sure County Public Works has done our own for all of our own county roads. And on top of that, Fish and Wildlife has done their own study. To me, it seems like we're just doing another study on top of another study.
So I don't disagree. I don't disagree. That's why I noted that we could use the WDFW inventory that's already there. It just has to be mapped because the data is still old. The only thing I reached out to all the sponsors. Hey, did you conduct a barrier study? They all said no. The only one that I was able to pull up anything for was the Underwood study, which only covers the west side. So I don't disagree. It could be a situation where the lead entity could use that WDFW inventory and then look for, projects that, that are some gems or whatnot.
So I guess the next question would be is do we get the money automatically, or do we have to apply for the grant ourselves?
For the barrier assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be its own program. You'd have to apply for it, in the standard way.
Okay. Maybe have another conversation with Lauren and make sure, because I'm pretty sure they did a barrier assessment. I can't remember, 8 or 9 years ago.
Will do. Next up, well monitoring. The department is nearly done with well monitoring for the fall period. We have one area remaining, which is the Rock Creek watershed, and a catch-up day for some wells that, they contacted us late after we had already done the area. The department was much more successful in monitoring this period. We physically knocked on doors, left letters at residences that we've been unable to contact, and we expect to be much more successful in Rock Creek, particularly because that's the area that we have the least amount of phone numbers and emails. All we have are addresses. Preliminary findings are similar to the spring period. The groundwater levels for domestic wells in the network have been largely stable. And after the data has been cleaned up, the department will consult the QAP to see if there's more we could do to make sure the network is representative of the county's groundwater supply. All in all, it's been a successful period. And given that we've recently been hit up for questions about groundwater health, we hope that this data can continue being used to help the county, helping residents who have questions, prospective development, etc. Any questions?
I'd really hope, have you checked with Ecology to see if they have any grants that could potentially cover well monitoring again? We used to get grants to cover the well monitoring program. Those dried up, but I haven't been aware of what Ecology's putting out for grants these days.
I have not. I've been looking. I haven't seen anything, but it's on the list. And I agree, it would be important to get funding for it. Goldendale
thank
Park
you.
Plan. The Goldendale Park Plan will be having its public input meeting this Thursday, October 24th at 6 p.m. downstairs in the Mount Adams room here in the County Services Building. The public input meeting will allow us to understand the public's own assessment of the condition of the parks here in town and what improvements they think need to be made. We recommend that people who can make it come out and give their thoughts. The city and the Parks and Rec District have been doing advertising, and you can find more information in the meeting link and information on Facebook. Also, you can go to the county's natural resources website to find the link for where the meeting is, and then the link for the online option. Then after the public meeting, we'll synthesize what we learned into what I have described as a demand and needs assessment, which will assist us with determining basically what demands and needs have public support that can then be used to create a capital improvement plan, a mock budget, and a schedule, estimation of funding and timelines for the park improvements and additions. And after that, we'll refine the plan and submit it to RCO for approval. Easier said than done. But after this public input meeting, that will be stage 2 of 4 completed for the park plan. Any questions?
That was at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock this Thursday downstairs.
Are they planning on having copies of that for the public to be able to look through?
The actual plan, no. So,
Draft
and
plan?
because it's just not, it's kind of messy, it's not viewable, but there will be a presentation that will be given in such a way that the public will understand what's going on and the information and that's needed, right? Basically, how do you feel about the parks? You feel like they're in good condition? What do you think needs to be done at these parks? What improvements do you think need to be made, right? We sort of take ourselves out of it for the public input meeting, and then we match up the public and then the folks making the plan, right? Guided, of course, by what the public wants and needs for the parks.
Are you aware in any way if this public meeting is being used to overlap the Oconee Park Planning Grant public meeting that will need to be held? Are they?
I believe it. I believe
use
it is.
This one
Yes.
is that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the Coney Planning Grant, totally different threshold of public input needed for that, right? So it was beneficial if we could collapse them in. I don't remember the gentleman, but from Pioneer, I think.
Okay.
Dry Butler. Oh, any questions? Anything else about Park Plan? Awesome. Dry Butler. So it's gonna be very fast. The department is in the process of the Q3 Dry Butler progress report payment request. Presumably the stream flow data collection for the generation of the basin yield assessment, which is the project, has been completed, and the assessment itself is the only thing remaining, but we're still waiting back from our contractor, the Conservation District, for information on what was accomplished for the period. The final deadline is March 2025. So, I mean, we got some time, but it's fast approaching. Still need to hear back from the Conservation District on that. Any questions? Awesome. Klickitat Hatchery, Yakima Nation. So Bonneville Power recently committed $35 million in investment to upgrade the Klickitat Hatchery near Glenwood that's owned by the Yakima Nation. This is funding that was initially committed as a part of the 2008 Columbia Basin Fish Accords, which was an agreement between several tribes, BPA, Army Corps, federal agencies that agreed to balance fish restoration and hydropower generation. Improvements to the facility include the water infiltration, fish ladder, spawning and holding infrastructure, modernizing an operation that has been neglected for some time. It'll allow operations not only to be more efficient, but will allow the hatchery to increase their juvenile Chinook population from 600 to 800,000 annually. The Klickitat Hatchery is a critically important piece of not only regional, but nationwide salmon recovery. And the department attended the groundbreaking ceremony on the 11th of October, made contacts with tribal natural resources representatives. We believe that this is a great opportunity for the tribe, and this could lead to future cooperation and collaboration. Any questions? Almost done. So there are 2 new grant programs open from the Department of Ecology, being the Freshwater Algae Control and Freshwater Aquatic Invasive Plant Management programs. Both programs provide zero match funding for management of aquatic invasive plants and algae. The department believes that if applicable, and if there's interest, these programs would be an excellent fit for Horse Thief Lake. down at Columbia Hills State Park, which deals with significant invasive aquatic species that have affected recreation. Grants for direct management require some kind of implementation plan that needs to be accepted by the Department of Ecology. So unless a plan is already in place, the funding could be used to make one. If there's interest, the only question would be, how does the department partner up with the parks? We want to reduce the administrative burden as much as possible, if not be the main sponsor, to completely eliminate the administrative burden. So if the board thinks favorably about undertaking this project, we will proceed in reaching out to the parks. How do we feel?
I feel it's interesting.
To be more specific, so Horse Thief Lake used to be much more utilized by the public in regards to swimming, fishing, boating purposes. And recently, due to the algae blooms that are down there, there's certain times of the year where you can't even get into the water. And so the idea would be, if we can pursue these grants, which wouldn't cost the county a dime, could we rehabilitate that Horse Thief Lake in order to make it usable by the public once again? One thing that might be, just for the county commissioners, situational awareness, because of its proximity to the Columbia River, I mean, it's right there. It might have to include the Army Corps of Engineers, and that might be a little bit of a sticky widget. But
and the question of again, to reduce that administrative burden, how does that work? Are co-sponsors even allowed? Right? How is that going to work? If applicable, if there's interest.
And state parks, where do they fit into that?
We would be broaching them directly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's totally necessary. I know what goes on down there and have seen it.
So we have been involved before. We have done this before. We did the milfoil in the mouth and slough of Rock Creek. This was done probably 2017, 2018. So you could reach out, and I believe Eastern Conservation District was the manager of it. Army Corps was involved. It was a Eurasian milfoil. They put some, it's almost like, it looks like salt that comes off the back of a boat and kills it. And there's 2 or 3 other ways to kill it as well. I guess it was really successful. I think it lasted 3 or 4 years. I haven't heard any updates on how it came back, but there was a large contingent and group of people who worked together to do that program. So, and the Klickitat County Weed Department was heavily engaged as well in it.
We'll have to reach out and get an update on how that project went, Commissioner. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, I would say, you have my permission to check into it and contact all those people and see if they're interested in playing in the same sandbox.
Okay.
Sounds good. The Northwest Forest Plan, an update on that. So the department has been familiarizing itself with the Northwest Forest Plan, which, and Commissioner Anderson, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a lot of information to absorb very quickly. It governs management on 17 national forests from California to Washington, and the series of reserves established within the planning area relevant to Klickitat County being Gifford-Pinchot, Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area, etc. In December of 2023, the U.S. Forest Service published an intent to amend the Northwest Forest Plan to incorporate 20 years of data collected from the plan's implementation to see how the plan might be improved to accomplish its original intent of preserving old growth forests, subsequent terrestrial and aquatic species of concern such as spotted owl, marble murrelet. As a part of the amendment, the U.S. Forest Service has to complete a NEPA, which will involve the issuance of an environmental impact statement, draft of which was anticipated to be released in October, but instead it will be released sometime in November, upon which there will be a 90-day public comment period. Notable obvious findings, necessitating this amendment, continual decline of spotted owl, climate change, severe weather, development to rural areas, by banning timber harvests, tribal concerns, a million other issues, right? It's a big deal. Presumably these concerns will be addressed, and the department will continue to update the board as the amendment process continues. As the environmental impact statement comes out, y'all will get more updates on that as that progresses. Any questions?
No, but thank you for keeping us updated.
Awesome. Last one. the Conservation Fund, which I mentioned previously. They are not official, but they are more than likely going to be the short-term holder of the former Condit Dam lands. So in 2021, they purchased 35,000 acres of SDS lumber forest land across the gorge from Oregon to Washington. Substantial holding spread around the west side of Klickitat County from Trout Lake to Klickitat. They recently reached out to the department for discussions. The interest of using those parcels for natural resource-focused economic development while maintaining environmental stewardship and promoting community engagement. Some topics we discussed: fire management, management through timber harvest, public access, which they've stated they will continue to allow, as well as hunting, right, with public access. In addition, they have also expressed interest in assisting other parts of the county with pre-development technical assistance from the Klickitat mill site to our other various parks. So we will continue to keep the board updated with how those conversations go.
Those were positive conversations. I'm thankful that they're reaching out. That's good.
Awesome. Any questions? That's all I got.
You
I'll
sound
be
very
much-
busy, that's for sure.
And I'll be very quick. So KCPTA meeting tonight at 6 p.m. Obviously we went through the budget this last Thursday. I've been involved with a number of just meetings in general. We had a recent meeting with Commerce with the ADO for KCPTA. In addition to that, we had a meeting with Commissioner Zoller and some folks from Commerce over there in White Salmon recently. So Martine, he's up in Granger. He's going to be coming back down and meeting with Juan from WAGAP. He's the new director of WAGAP. And that meeting, we're going to be talking about housing and other funding issues that can assist with WAGAP. We've also been attending WSU's pump storage siting webinars that they've been doing. There's only one pump storage that I'm familiar with within Washington State. So we're continuing to be engaged with WSU on how that's rolling out. Right now, they're focusing on tribal engagement, which rolls into some rollouts that Commerce is doing in general, and is basically what Commerce is going to be coming out with here probably in the next year or so is going to be what are the best practices in regards to tribal engagement, official tribal engagement, and what does that consultation looks like? What does that consultation look like with development projects? So that has a direct impact on our SEPA as well as our cultural resource surveys. In addition to that, we've also got KVH this Thursday. They got a big ribbon cutting ceremony with Governor Jamesley coming down and Representative Gina Mosbrucker attending, and that's for the hydrogen, more specifically the central utility plant and hydrogen fuel cell microgrid project that they're doing out there. And speaking of hydrogen, we've also been attending various meetings in regards to the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association, which is another offshoot from Commerce, to see what that's developing. I figured it's directly applicable with KVH. And then lastly, we've been engaged with the Pacific Northwest Rural Development Initiative, also coming out of Commerce. That's very new. It seems like they're kind of trying to figure out more of a who we are, what can we do within Commerce to help assist rural communities. So we still have a few more weeks of meetings that we're doing, but I'll keep the commissioners engaged and updated on what that kind of looks like. Our initial meeting was basically like, who is everybody? This is kind of where we think we might fit in. What are your ideas? What are your projects? How can we assist? Type of deal. So outside of that, that's about it.
Are you attending the Thursday meeting? Is anybody good? That was on my list to ask.
The KVH meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be at the KVH.
Perfect.
In the evening when we do the park plan, Keaton's going to be going to that, and I'll be going to the GTA, Gorge Technology Alliance.
Okay.
Evening meeting out there in Hood River. So, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure the Thursday KVH was covered.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is. Any questions? Oh, I totally forgot. I'm sorry. I even had this written down on another sheet of paper. Some big things coming out from ecology. This was just adopted last month, and it is it is basically a draft programmatic environmental impact statement regarding SEPAs, in regards to both utility scale solar farms, wind farms, and hydrogen projects. So more specifically, they're planning on doing a revisement of what a SEPA should, like how that should be done. The final EIS on that is going to be July of next year. More specifically, that just came out. The draft EIS just came out last month. We just learned of this, and so as we continue to basically go through this material, we'll update the board with whatever findings we come out with that might impact Klickitat County. So some brief things would be, what does that encompass? And just kind of leafing through the text and everything, like it would encompass solar farms, for instance, that are greater than 340 acres up to 125,000 acres. So utility scale projects.
So what you're saying is they're coming out with guidelines for counties. When you do your SEPA, you need to do it this way, kind of thing? It sounds like to me.
Yeah, so from my understanding, that's basically what it looks like. So an environmental impact statement is basically, what are the mitigation requirements for large scale wind or solar or hydrogen projects? How should that be mitigated at a SEPA level? And so we just found out about this.
And which organization is doing this now?
Ecology, the State Department of Ecology.
We've known about it for a while. And what it is a programmatic EIS. It's the exact same thing as our energy overlay zone, the programmatic EIS. So even though there's a programmatic EIS, you would still have to do your own site-specific EIS for site-specific issues. But what you're doing is you're taking, a portion of the EIS workload off of the entire project, because there's things that each project has in common with all the other projects. It's the same thing kind of we did with the wind farms.
How big is that EIS? How big is that document?
250 pages.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
For both that and the solar.
Okay.
Yeah, so the solar is 250 pages, the wind's 250 pages, and then the hydrogen.
Okay.
I have them pulled up on my desktop literally right now within my browsers.
Okay.
We're trying to pour through it.
Can you make sure to send that link to my seat?
Yeah.
For the hydrogen more specifically, they're still doing their scoping. So they're still scoping. They're not going to come out with their draft EIS, draft programmatic EIS that Commissioner Anderson was talking about until January 2025. So that one's a little bit delayed. But now I'm done. Any questions? Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I get information about that?
Yeah, come on down. I'll give it to you.
Great. So we have Health Department at 11:15.
I have a quickie.
Okay.
Asked Mr. Larson afterwards, or I sent him a message that it sounds like just draw something out and turn it in. And his response was he was told that if he turns in a drawing like that and it gets denied, that he'd have to pay the processing fee over again when he turned in another one. So he's trying to make sure it's correct so he doesn't have to pay processing fees twice. And I just told him, sounds like that's the direction the board wants you to go. So, try to draw one up and be accurate, and let's hope it gets through. So that's, I think, the direction he's going.
Okay. Thank you. So do we want to set a workshop on the cistern subject? Do you want to go back and review it and find out what happened to everything?
To me, I don't know.
We don't know if there's actually an issue here.
Correct. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know if there's an issue with the way it's written. There may be an issue on how we help, how much we help the public understanding what options they have, what the minimum requirements are. And I think we may have that problem in a lot of different departments in our county, like I explained with the cluster ag. And that's just kind of a policy choice for us to give directors the guidance to make sure you educate people that ask, what is the minimum requirement or all the various options.
Okay.
Yeah,
And my questions
So-
were specific to a project. Mine were more about what happened with the ordinance and where it's at right now. But I can work through that independently. And then if I find things that I feel like we need to talk
I mean,
about.
I would love to know the answer of why.
Mhm.
Like I said, in the original update 2 weeks ago that I gave you, or a week ago, was the engineer did what the minimum required that the health department told them needed to be done. That was the word the gentleman got from the engineer. So to me, I'd like to know, is that what public health told the engineer they had to do? But again, that's almost like having a Spanish Inquisition in the middle of the boardroom, and I don't know that that's the correct way to do that. And then you'd kind of have to hear from the engineer too, so you're not getting, and it just kind of makes things messy. That I don't know. There's got to be a better way to make sure that we're explaining all the different avenues to the public so that they can choose what works for them based on an educated decision.
Can you explain or restate what you said earlier, that if he turns it in, he would get charged a separate processing fee if it's not good enough? And is that a question you plan on asking Director Quinn when she comes in?
No, because I'm told we're not talking about environmental health. We're talking about public health and mental health. So that's not would be the time. His
Environmental
message,
health
his
is underneath
message,
public health.
his message was, I was told that if I turn one in and it was denied, that I would have to pay the processing fee over again when I turn in another one. So I was trying to make sure it was what they wanted.
So I think, Jake, if Mr. Christopher works on his questions at his time and I work on my questions at my time, maybe that's something we can both bring back later to see if we need to go further. If you don't feel you get resolved. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to ask the question, I don't want to stereotype, but I tend to not get responses to emails and phone calls from many facets of the county at this point in time.
I'm going to have a list of questions, so I'll probably have a sit down and try to go through them.
Yeah, it would be curious if there's, I mean, and maybe that's true and accurate to some degree, like if you turn in a building permit and your engineering is off, but I can't imagine we would like make you submit a new building permit fee. I mean, do we do that? So if your first one sucks, you have to turn in a whole nother fee to go over it again. Okay. It just seems weird and messy.
Well, I guarantee you, turning it in twice and drawing it is a lot cheaper, and whatever that processing fee is a lot cheaper than $18,000.
Right, but I think the whole thing is I don't think he has a problem drawing it up and turning it in. He just couldn't get the information on what is the minimum required. So he didn't want to pay the processing fee by turning in a simple drawing and have it fail. So he had the engineer, word of mouth, he had the engineer working with public health, and the engineer drew up what they were told. But you know, it's one of those, if we can advise him what the minimum standard is, I'm sure he could draw something up.
Erin, you're early.
I am.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understood that there was some information about my department I needed to straighten up, so I'm here.
Okay. I think we resolved, maybe we'll be visiting individually.
Okay.
The one question the guy had is if he turned in the drawing for the cistern, if it didn't pass, he would have to pay the fee again, is what he was told. So I just want
That I don't
clarification
know.
on
I
that.
know that we've had very limited interaction with the gentleman that's made a lot of statements that are not true. So he should probably engage with our staff and make sure that he's got the right information. We haven't had any email or communication with him, I think, in almost a month. So we provided him the policy, we provided the engineering firm with the policy and have had really no other communication other than hearing that we've been dragged through the mud publicly without any basis, which is very upsetting for both me and my staff. And I understand that it's hard for everyone, but I really feel like I should have the opportunity to address this privately and make sure that everyone has the same information on the same page before we move forward. So I'm really disappointed with how this is shaking out.
Okay.
Just to be honest. So any questions you have, you can email me. I will get you the answers as soon as I can with all of the information that I have at hand.
I will do that.
Okay, I will get it right back to you.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah. Any other questions about that topic? Great. Also, I just want to do my update. I think you have your metrics. I want to start with behavioral health today. We have 4 full-time staff right now. Lacey Villamar, who's a contractor, is currently acting as our interim manager. I would like approval to be able to advertise that position that's been vacant since July. So we're going to advertise for that in December if that's okay. Was that a yes? Sorry.
And
Yeah.
it's all in your budgets.
Yeah. No, she's just been doing that as a contractor, but just like we can't do that forever. She has to be a full-time employee, so we need to advertise that. We have 5 openings right now in behavioral health. So we're currently advertising for 2 DCRs. We're advertising for a mental health therapist, substance use disorder peer, and 2 DCRs and a mental health therapist and the other 2. So a crisis case manager is the 5th one. We are not getting a lot of applicants. So our internet is we're hopeful that it should be fixed in the next week. We were able to find the $11,000 to pay for that. I think staff's biggest thing is that we'll be able to make phone calls now. That's been a big thing that we haven't been able to do. So that will be good. We're continuing to support the jail with our SUD group, mood and behavior management groups. SUD is still seeing outpatients. We're now taking referrals from adult probation, the Department of Corrections, and our own crisis. So we have had 8 clients in September. And I think that's it for behavioral health. Any questions about behavioral health? No?
No questions. I just want to say great job partnering with corrections as well as everyone else, making sure we're getting that said back out in the community.
For public health administratively, we had our health educator start October 1st. Julie Rising is starting with us. She's our health educator. She's gonna, we haven't had a health educator for quite some time, I think for about 8 years. So we're kind of working on revamping what that looks like in public health and having her get out in the community and meet community partners that we're working with and where she can do a little bit more outreach. We had staff attend trainings on food this last month, Sunday, and I went to a Board of Health meeting. Our finance person and I went to a Smart Sheets training, and then I now also attended the State Public Health Association meeting. So got a lot of really good ideas and to bring back to the county for implementation. So we are advertising for a nurse, public health nurse in White Salmon. Our nursing manager, Christy Ridgway, is retiring, so I'd like approval to be able to advertise for that position so that we can fill that. Say that?
I'm sure I know the answer. I'm just saying to the public, grant funded?
No, well, I mean.
No county funds.
It's not your funds, yes.
Correct.
Yep, that's our thing, yes, nope, I get the funds. So that's not a problem. And then we are tracking, there is an outbreak ongoing with the avian influenza in Benton Franklin. They did ask us for some resources as far as supplies that we actually did not have. So, but we are in close contact. If they need anything, obviously we'd provide any mutual support we're able to provide.
Supplies do they need?
They're looking for viral transport media. It's needed to do the actual testing, and they have to do, they're trying to do a very large number of people. we have 3 in our county. That's not, I mean, that's an adequate number for our county. So I told them they could have 2, but that's not, I mean, you know, that's not, yeah, they said thank you, but anyway. And then for the first, we have an epidemiologist that's going to start working with us. So Lewis County got funding. It was a 50-50 split. So they hired an epidemiologist, but they're supposed to be 50% of their work is supposed to be supporting Klickitat County. I think we've never had an epidemiologist before. We're not entirely sure how to utilize that. So they're going to start helping us with just like some data to look at for a strategic plan in the future. So they'll be able, I know there's a lot of people ask me for data around suicide and overdose deaths. And that's really hard to unpack and find. And so they're going to help us kind of put some of that together, understanding what community health assessments have been done in the county and compiling them so that we kind of have a just a lot of information that's going to give us a better, bigger picture look so that we can do better strategic planning in the future. So, and then let's see, I think that's for clinical health and nurses attended a parents it's teachers conference last week with the intent that in 2025 we can reestablish a home visiting program. So we're working towards that. We haven't we're still in the planning phases, but that's our intent, is to be able to have a home visiting program again. We haven't had one, I don't think, since about 2018. And then also environmental health, which is in fact part of the public health department. They're preparing for their wet season. They've been busy with a lot of food inspections and just keeping everything together. So questions about anything I can answer for you? No?
Jake?
Yeah.
Nothing for Jake.
Okay. Send me an email if you need
Good report.
anything.
I will.
Okay.
Or I'll
thank
come
you.
visit.
Okay. Even
Okay.
better.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Mr. King, are you ready? Elise? Do you have a resolution for us? Thank you.
I actually have 2 versions. One that is a single resolution to rescind the burn bans in all 3 zones, or a resolution each for the 3 zones. I don't know if the clerk had any preference. I think it could all be done in one resolution.
They're all the same dates. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to be done in the same resolution.
Correct. That was our thinking too, but I didn't want to assume. So. All the information. Did want to point out that the media release that's going out with that will stress the fact that the conditions, are still not ideal for burning large piles, debris piles, and that if someone chooses to burn anything, even a campfire, which we've had some escaped campfires in the recent weeks, even as early as last Saturday, looked like a campfire in the Simcoes was left unattended and got away. So the conditions have changed though in the last few days, that the fire chiefs, myself, believe that it is time to rescind the burn ban in all 3 zones. If you have any questions.
I'm reading through this, but you might be able to speed me up by telling me is there a set date to rescind, or is that upon signing the document?
At midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight.
So that would make it, the burn ban would go out of effect tomorrow.
I'm fine with it. Do you need a motion, or it's on the agenda?
Need a
What's that?
motion.
With that, I would make a motion to rescind the burn ban in all 3 zones affecting at midnight, October 22nd, and to sign the resolution.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Excellent.
I have a question you might know the answer to. Driving down Trout Lake, Glenwood Highway, all that kind of stuff. They got all the burn piles there covered with tarps, essentially black plastic, and then some logs on top. When they light those things off, do they remove that plastic or they just burn that on the pile? Do you any idea?
I wouldn't know specifically. It'd probably depend on the actual landowner doing the burning, whether they chose to or not. I
That was
don't
my
know.
only question.
And that's all, managed and governed by the DNR.
Right. Not on our
Industrial.
baby. It's just, it was a question I had because they had all the like branches on top of it. And I'm like, do they really strip all that off or just pump some fuel in there and light it up?
That would all depend on the individual, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. That is it until lunchtime. We have an update at 1 from Sunday Sutton starting in. Jen- Okay, where was she at? Was she at on the,
Unfinished business, item
Okay.
13.
okay. Okay, Jen, if you're online, would you like to move forward from this afternoon with number 13, unfinished business? About a resolution? Or will you be ready still this afternoon? Does that put you on the spot?
I can probably go in, if you can give me like 5 minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
I know you're not, but Mr. Christopher, were you planning on attending the Thursday KVH or the Thursday evening Golden Dale Park event thing?
My plan is to be at the park event, yes.
Okay.
Down here from planning commission, ripped all my cords off the wall. Swimming in cords.
Cold in here? That was too warm.
I think it's just.
You might be where it's circulating.
And I need some sleeves.
Mhm.
We used to have a blankie.
Mm-hmm.
She had a blankie on her lap under the desk. She was in long johns half the time, and in that room across the way was a hot box. I mean, David sit in there just sweat. Might get documents signed before noon today.
Ready? I am ready.
Thank you.
And I will go ahead and share my screen if that's all right.
Thank you.
Okay. So I apologize in advance for the fact that this last supplemental has been put together as quickly as it possibly can, and there were adjustments being made on the fly. This just unfortunately was something completely unavoidable. The last supplemental of the year, usually it is always a crunch time. We cannot get budget reports until after the 10th of the month. I gave the directors and the elected officials the extra day to analyze, which really put a lot of strain on my time. So up until just a second ago, I was still working through all the details of it all. What you have on before you, the resolution is to set the public hearing date for November 12th for the total amount of a supplemental of $2,070,221. Total budget intervention is 1.252. You also have this packet in your inbox as of 2 seconds ago. So we knew that there was going to be a significant amount going through this. You know, roughly $1 million of it is being covered by dollars already put forward. Some of this is going to be things that have already been approved. The budget intervention, adult probation, you've already approved that software. The auditor's non-departmental, that 12,000 there is to cover some jail transition costs. This jail line right here, the $111,000, that is the BOCC jail/corrections transitionary costs anticipated for the last 2 months. Buildings and grounds for winter storm damage. There's 2 in here for the sheriff. One was initially submitted by Karen of 424. Some of that is for patrol, some of that is for the jail. I met with the sheriff and added to it for items that I saw that would run at risk of going over budget. So that 189 is what I added to the supplemental request after speaking with the sheriff. And then emergency management, these are done in 3 different parts due to the request story some of the requests being previously approved. The first one being the winter storm damage to the radio site. then the retirement and recruitment incentive. And then there's a correction needed with the fund balance, which I've been discussing with the board since Q1. So that should cover all of those things there. Any questions so far?
Can you go into a little bit more detail on the corrections transition? Is that primarily moving the funds for the new corrections manager over, or what all goes into that bucket?
That's going to be wages and benefits for the potential new hire, as well as a potential RN, and then a little bit of an increase for training just in case. But for the most part, that sums that up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Have any questions, Mr. Christopher?
No, I'm assuming you're going to go over this in detail when we actually have the public hearing.
Yes, of course I will. This year, what I had done with the prior submissions was I built in an extra week so that the board and myself could talk about these a little bit before we got to the hearing. We don't have that time in this time frame for this third supplemental, so I just wanted to highlight anything here. And of course, the board can always email me questions as well, and we can go through that.
Just what I'm seeing is under Public Works, it shows 8,899.4. So I don't
That's
know.
a mistype on my part. I will correct that. Anything else?
You want this emailed to you, Greg? Is that what you're saying? You want a copy?
See it.
Well, I can't control the Zoom screen.
You can make it bigger.
I can't control the Zoom screen. That's what I said. We could email it to him if you wanted to home. That's why I asked.
Can get copies someplace.
No, I have no questions, Jen.
I don't.
Dan says he's good.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have time to discuss
None
it.
here.
Okay, thank you. So do we need do we need a motion on that? No. Okay. So we do need a motion on the resolution for the,
Still reading.
okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we set a public hearing for the supplemental budget and amendments to the 2024 budget in the sum of $2,070,221 for the funds listed in the presentation.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
I was gonna say, all aye. I should have said what date it was on,
I
but
was gonna say that before.
then I was trying to budge in with an amendment to that,
Yeah,
but
I noted that.
but for discussion, we'll notice that the date scheduled is the 12th day of November.
11:15 a.m.
At 11:15 a.m. Yeah. Now we're ready for a vote. Had an aye and an aye.
An aye and
Two
aye.
ayes and one more aye maybe,
Aye.
and then we're done.
We are done. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So seeing no further business. We'll take care of everything.
Ready for a motion to recess for lunch?
Yes, please.
I move that we recess for lunch and be back at 1 o'clock.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Good afternoon, and we'll reopen the October 22nd Klickitat County Commissioners regular meeting with Sunday. Yes.
Sunday Sutton.
Yes. And we'll get an update from our Klickitat Prevention Coalition. Is that where we're at? I don't have my blue sheet in front of me. I lost it somewhere today.
Hopefully we start with introductions.
And that's
'cause
Joanna Turner.
I only know
Yes,
two of them,
okay.
so.
So yeah,
And I don't.
we'll let Sunday start with introductions and that'll help me get
There we
past
go.
this. Yes.
My name is Sunday Sutton. I am the coalition coordinator for CPAC Coalition, which is a coalition under Washington Gorge Action Program, or our CPWI grant. My name is Joanna Turner. I coordinate our Klickitat, which receives drug-free communities, so federal funding, and to do prevention throughout the county.
Okay, and I'm Sheila Cropper, and I'm the coordinator, and it's kind of for Classic, which is the Klickitat Lyle Against Substance Abuse Coalition. And we are also CPWI funded, so the Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative funding, same as CPAC's.
Okay.
And then if we have one more, oh, Kristen.
Good afternoon.
Kristen, do you want to?
Yeah, I can introduce myself. I'm with my little 1-year-old, so please bear with me. I'm Kristen McReith, and I am the CPWI director for the White Salmon Valley School District area. And so we are a cohort 7 community similar to Sundays in Goldendale, but serving the White Salmon Valley area.
Thank you. And you mentioned federal funding. Is that your main source? Is it all federal funded?
So there's 4 different coalitions in Klickitat County.
Mhm.
I coordinate the one that receives federal funding. So we started in 2016. In 2018, we got our first DFC grant, so Drug-Free Communities again. It's $125,000 for 5 years. It's a non-competing grant for the first 5 years.
125 a year, total 25,000 a year.
125 a year.
That's
Yep.
better.
Yep, and there's a little cheat sheet, 1-pager in front of you guys too. So our Klickitat received our second round of 5-year funding 2 years ago. So we are currently in year 7. So we will get this funding for 3 more years for the county. And this 1-pager in front of you talks a little bit about the coalition and what we've done in the last year or two. I don't need to tell you everything that we've done, but we've done a lot of things throughout the county, and we try to support in, the smaller school districts where there aren't CPWI grantees. So they'll talk a little bit about that. One of the big things that our coalition is currently working on is just how we are sustainable after this round of funding ends. So currently there is no federal funding past year 10 for this type of work in communities. So thinking of things like, do we work with the county? Can we work with the county health department? Those types of things. How do we sustain and keep doing prevention when these funds expire?
What is the definition of substance?
Substance?
Is that just drugs, or is that tobacco? Is that vape pens? Is that?
Yep, it's drugs and alcohol, tobacco, all the things. So how do we address substance misuse in the county? Yep, so we aren't just looking at like cannabis, we're not just looking at alcohol. We are trying to look at all the things. How do we support youth in all the ways? How do we build community is basically what it boils down to.
Do you think with the funding, they reallotted it, reconfigured it and reallotted it for a new effort under someone else, say under the county, under the states?
Well, so these three get state funds and they can talk more about them. And so the state funds are allocated through the Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative. And so those go to specific areas like Goldendale or Lyle and Klickitat or like Kristen and White Salmon. So those three communities get specific funds that are funneled through the state. And then my funds are supposed to look at all the other little outlying schools in the rest of the county.
Are the little dots here? Are those all the things you work on, or are you just substance?
Yeah, no, these are ways that substances impact our health. So when you look at, so we look at all those things and take them into consideration when we talk about programming or how we connect with kids. So substances affect our lives in a whole host of areas. It's not just one way. It's not like substances in schools, but how do we do it in a way that's comprehensive? Yeah. Do you want to talk about Classic next? Sure. Because I think you guys are the next, right?
So Classic is really focused on Klickitat and Lyle, the two communities. That's what our funding's for. Our main goal, I mean, substances overall, but our main goal is usually geared toward alcohol, cannabis, tobacco. And even though it's community-wide, we focus a lot on youth prevention. So a lot of our programs and events and things are actually in the schools. So we have myself in the community, and then we have two student assistance professionals who work in both Lyle School and Klickitat School. And so they interact with the youth every day there, and that is who sees any youth that are having any substance issues, and just youth in general. They do a lot of prevention stuff with school-wide, like they're doing Red Ribbon Week next week, things like that. So we have a program called Positive Action that actually is being implemented it'll be through K through 8 this year in Klickitat School. Lyle actually has their own, it's a social emotional learning program. So Lyle has their own they're using right now. But both Klickitat and Lyle schools get a middle school curriculum called Project Northland. So both schools will get that this year for middle schoolers. And then in high school, they have a program called Class Action. And they're all prevention-based curriculums geared toward those ages and do some like refusal skills and just general knowledge. We also have a teen group, TADA, which is Teens Advocating for Drug and Alcohol Awareness, in both schools this year. And so they do projects in school, like, for example, like I said, Red Ribbon Week's coming up. So they do some activities around that and, work with their peers basically to teach them about substance prevention and just encouraging them not to use. And so I work directly with them part of the time. I'll go in and do projects with them, but our student assistance professional generally works with them kind of on a daily basis. And then we run off volunteers completely. So we have an executive committee that has nine places, and our regular coalition members that make it when they can. And then we combine with 12 different sectors within the community. We have to have a rep from each of those sectors as part of our funding. So we work a lot of partnerships with not just other coalitions, but the health department, physicians, people like law enforcement, people like that. And we are actually in year 11 this year. Yeah, so we've been around for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I should say most of what we're doing right now is like community connectedness type events, just trying to get parents information about talking to their youth about substances and learning the facts about why they shouldn't use them in the first place. So we do some parenting classes with that same positive action curriculum. So what they're getting in school, the parents can also get outside of school and use at home also. And then we do a lot of things like family game nights. We've done some opioid trainings, Narcan trainings, things like that. And we run on $130,000 a year budget, which is pretty maxed out at this point between admins and, salaries and benefits and things like that. So we're running on pretty close to nothing at this point, honestly. And so we're just kind of always reaching out there and trying to make new connections so that if we have something come up that we can't cover, because we have a lot of problems with, our funding's actually really hard to spend on some of our events. So like things like food and, you know, incentives like gas cards to try to get parents there, or childcare or things like that. We can't pay for very easily with our funding. So like I said, goal is to just keep making connections and hopefully gain some new funding over the years, because we're, like I said, getting pretty maxed out at this point.
Do you have a regular class through the school that they make it a class and everybody
You know,
comes through, or?
Normally, no. Normally the curriculum is done like during health class part of the year, things like that. But Klickitat this year actually will have a whole class third term for the 7th and 8th graders that will be using positive action. So they'll have a whole class geared toward that.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So progress.
Any questions, Mr. Christopher? Is Mr. Anderson online? I see.
Yep. Is the state funding passed through federal funding, or is it actually state funding?
So my grant is federal funding, and then the other 3 coalitions are state funded. But we all operate under a coalition model. So we all have to have volunteers from 12 different sectors participating in the coalition to even get our funding.
I think where he's going from is, are you getting the grant straight from the state, or is it passed through county to you?
This is straight from it go. So my fiscal agent, it runs through the state runs it through our ESD 112 office out of Vancouver and to us. Yeah. So technically I work for ESD 112 and the funding goes that way. So with the CPWI funding, for mine, not everyone's is the same.
Yeah.
Mine is a block grant, a substance abuse block grant. And then I also receive funding from the dedicated cannabis account which is the taxes collected from cannabis retailers throughout the state. So I get a portion of that.
Good.
So yeah, 25,000 of that a year, of our budget a year, is actually from the cannabis account.
But the other 3 of us, Gap is our fiscal agent.
Yeah.
And the funding actually comes through the Washington State Healthcare Authority. So the state provides funding to the healthcare authority that then moves it through to the many different coalitions in
To our fiscal
state.
agents, yeah. And then
Learn something new.
So then does the healthcare authority take their percentage and then send it to WACAP, and then they take their percentage and then they send it to you? Or is it passed through where no funds get siphoned off?
Are they administrating, are
There
they
are
taking administrative fees?
there are some
administrative fees in each step.
So the 120,000, is that what you actually get, or is that before or after the administrative fees?
I get 130,000, and that's after the administrative.
So probably started at 150.
And I get 125, and that's before administrative fees.
And I do believe that our 130, the 130 that I receive, WAGAP does take administration fees out of that.
Out of the 130.
Yeah, and ESD does also. It's not a huge portion, but about 5,000 of that goes to ESD.
I think it's now 6% or 8%.
I had a question back on this sheet. I had to look up what screenagers was. Sounds helpful. Supported 4 school youth events. What kind of events are those?
Yeah, so those are going to the state-funded youth prevention program. There's one in the fall that the state does, and then there's one in the spring. And so youth from schools can go.
Oh, they go to
to a conference. Yep. So they go and then they get excited, and then they come home and they can create some prevention programming for their school or their community. And then they get to go in the spring and present what they did.
Yeah, all of our teen groups try to participate in that.
And do you guys have a list? How many volunteers do you have versus how many total paid staff between your coalition?
So I'm the only paid staff. Well, and then our SAPs, which are our student assistance professionals, they don't get paid out of my part of the funding, but they are connected to the CPWI funding, but that streams through ESD through a different funding source than mine. So it doesn't come out of my 130,000. And then as far as volunteers, I mean, right now, like I said, our executive committee has 9 positions. We have 6 filled right now. And as far as membership, I mean, technically speaking, we have probably 20. We're not getting them regularly right now though. So we're probably only averaging 5 or so that show up anymore. The last couple years or so.
And mine is similar. I am a paid staff, and our student assistant professional is also through ESD 112. That is a separate funding stream, but our grants are tied together. You will not have one without the other. So the school system had to agree to have the student assistant professional within the school in order for this community to receive the grant funding. So they are tied together, but they are separate funding streams.
Separate funding streams, but in order for a CPWI funded coalition to get their funding, they have to support a student assistance professional in their local school.
And I have 12 to 16 regular members at our meetings. And we have, I believe, 24 registered members. And I do believe there are, then on top of that, we also have partnerships. And I believe there are 8 of those that are registered as partners. I might have to look, it might be 6 or 8 that participate in our coalition.
Yeah, I don't get funding for a student assistance professional. It's just me, myself, and I, all 3 of us. And then the other coalition members are all volunteers.
And have either the schools or have the coalitions, have you created any metrics or done any monitoring to find out the effectiveness of the programs, or is there statewide metrics on the effectiveness? And is that something you can share?
Yeah, so I did a presentation a few months ago that had, and I don't have that in front of me, and I apologize for that, that had our student assistant professional gave her stats on how many, I think she said she had 57 students that she saw individually doing risk assessment as well as individual services with providing sometimes that's a brief risk assessment. Sometimes it's interactive meetings because our school, as you I'm sure know, there's a lot of crisis that is happening in our schools because of the lack of mental health services available. And so they do a lot of that individual care when they're referred. My student assistant professional also does groups with students. And we also have a youth club, prevention club with several students, both in the middle and the high school, that our student assistant professional interacts with regularly. And they do many different programs throughout the school. We just did something for the Harvest Festival. They were at the Halloween dance, handing out Red Ribbon Week information. We're also going to the Prevention Summit, which is at the end of this month. We're taking 5 students with us there, and they get to interact with students all over the state. And gain knowledge of prevention strategies and what's working, and also develop programs that they can then do within our county. I don't know if you saw the canvases up on our light posts. Our students developed those. And we hope to do that again this next year, hopefully with more messaging. So they're very interactive, and we interact with them regularly. We're so grateful to finally be within the school system and interacting with the schools and helping finding out what their needs are and trying to meet those needs. We provided water bottles this year to middle school because they're focusing on healthy hydration, and they're also focusing on getting their students to be more interactive or active. So they are developing clubs for students to get involved in. I probably over answered that and I apologize for that.
Well, I will, just to kind of go back to your question. Yes, we do have to track data that we have to enter into a system for the state for our own funding purposes. So for example, when positive action is implemented in schools, I actually have to track that attendance and turn that into the state and as part of our funding. I don't have the data right in front of me right now, but I can pull data from that we can share if need be. And then a lot of our data comes from the Healthy Youth Survey, which since we've been in existence, and I don't know the number right off the top of my head, over the last 10 years that we've been in existence, I know like our alcohol rates for youth alcohol use have dropped quite a bit from the beginning of our coalition. But yeah, we can, and the SAPs track their own data also, which we can get access to if we need to. Like to see some of that.
If you look online, the Healthy Youth Survey, it's
Is available.
askhys.net. And it's administered every 2 years to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders throughout the whole entire state. So you can drill down on that website. They have a really interactive dashboard that you can look at rates of, say, last 30-day use for youth throughout the county every 2 years. So it's just a point in time that you can track information by.
And I would say overall throughout our county, we are seeing lower numbers of substance use. Our grant, the primary focus was opioid use, and it is almost zeroed out from where we started for youth. And our numbers for cannabis kind of up and down, but tobacco use is down, alcohol use is down. And those are stats that you can find on the Healthy Youth Survey as well. It doesn't mean it's non-existent. Sometimes it's reporting, who's reporting what, and our kids get savvy to some of that. So, but they're pretty accurate, and you can find state rates and compare it to what Klickitat County is doing as well.
That is exactly what I wanted. Thank you. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, every community prevention and wellness initiative, every CPWI grant that is granted, it has a focused substance. So mine was opiates, though we address other substances of abuse.
Ours is alcohol and cannabis.
Yeah, and mine's alcohol and cannabis as well, but we also do other things like the naloxone trainings and hand them out. Yeah.
And then Kristen, is yours of focus?
Yeah, we are focusing on opioid misuse, binge drinking, and vaping currently.
And I would add, as far as how it's working, I would say our schools definitely find it beneficial. Our student assistance professional in Klickitat is hired through ESD and through the state for 2 days a week. And then we have a 3-day-a-week one in Lyle. And both schools have actually hired that person to cover the rest of the week out of their own budgets because they found it so beneficial to have them 5 days a week instead of just that 2 or 3 days a week. So.
And the other schools don't have a student assistance professional in the classroom. So I try to support through things like screenagers or different events. And I live in Trout Lake, so I'm better connected at that end of the county. And so any connections or ways that we can support in some of the other schools or areas, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know.
Are these ones that are supported? Are they supported because there's a metric at the state that shows a poverty level or something that gets them that support, and why others don't qualify? Or
it goes by
why is there not one in Glenwood and Trout Lake if there's one in Lake Salmon is my point.
So it does go by the Healthy Youth Survey data. They determine which communities are in the highest need and put out a list every year, every couple of years. Originally, Glenwood, before us, actually, Glenwood was offered
Glenwood and Trout Lake.
one before Classic got theirs 11 years ago. And they were not ready and didn't want it at the time and turned it down. And so then we were kind of next in line and it came to us.
Yeah, so they didn't have capacity at the time to
Yeah.
have someone to apply for the grant and follow through. So they lost the opportunity to apply for a CPWI grant that would have served Trout Lake and Glenwood.
Are those available now if, say, Trout Lake and Glenwood wanted one, or Roosevelt Bickleton or something? Can they go apply, or is the money already been given to the county?
Each community has to be appointed. The state determines which community to approach to for the CPW.
Yeah, they'll release that list every couple of years after health use survey. So we, on our part, we just strongly encourage and actually reach out to all the schools to make sure they're all having their kids take the healthy use survey every 2 years, because that's what's going to determine whether they requalify for that opportunity.
I'm assuming that survey is anonymous for them. Kids just fill it out, throw it in a box.
It's online now.
So that hopefully they can answer correctly. And
Well, it's done online, and so the kids don't, there's, trust issues there for kids that it's actually anonymous, even though they're told that it's anonymous. They,
And it is anonymous, but
yeah, they don't necessarily believe it.
especially if they had to log in to take the test.
Right. So I did want to also point out that CPAC is unique in that we're also a 501c3. So we receive funding through different avenues. So we, as CPAC, can write for grant funding outside of the CPWI grants, which we have used to do like the community activities that we do. One free community activity a week. We did the Halloween dance. We've done bingo nights. We've done a Christmas, we've done meals in our community, and all of those events are free and they're supported by different grants and community, as well as Washington Gorge Action Program. We're also able to, like Sheila said, the CPWI grant funding is kind of limiting, so we can't afford meals and things like that, or incentives in any way. But because CPAC is able to apply for additional fundings, we can do those things. So we use that funding for many different purposes, but also to support our youth group and many of their activities, because kids like to have food and kids like to go places, and like we can afford them to help promote their Red Ribbon Week activities, where they're providing cocoa to the teachers, or cookies, and having booths available where they're supporting each other and their other youth. So they've done contests in the schools and other things, which peer on peer is we know to be the best support.
Funny how you've gotten to be the same work, but different groups.
We try to coordinate our work as much
Yeah.
as we can to support each other and be giving a consistent message throughout the county.
Yeah, and for example, one way we've recently worked with each other is Classic didn't have funding for Red Ribbon Week this year. And so our Klickitat was able to step up and purchase some of the supplies that our youth group needed.
I saw
Since,
the
like,
banners.
Yeah, they got banners up through town.
They
Yeah.
did.
So
Mhm.
that came from our Klickitat because we didn't have the funding
Okay.
left.
That's good.
So we
Thank you.
connect on things that, and we also, Classic's been in the talks with Seek recently, just trying to figure out if we can get any other funding to kind of run through them to help them support us sometimes, because I don't have a way to take in funding right now outside of our CPWI grant through ESD.
Well, they've been in contact with us too.
Yes, Vern said he's been in contact with you. And yes, I was supposed to actually mention that, but I was like, wasn't gonna beg for opioid money right now. I was like, but yes, he said that he had contacted you guys about where the opioid funding was. And he said he'd heard that was through the health department and that we'd have to go.
They said I
from there.
guided him in that direction, so.
Yep, so. we'll
And did you
head
end
that
up
way.
a 501c3 because you're in a bigger community? How did you end up, just a choice of your group deciding to?
So CPAC has been around since 2005. We started as a meth action team with county funding and we've just evolved.
Migrated from there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And part of that evolution was partnering with the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program, which was another coalition, and they were a 501c3. So we were able to merge and become CPAC. So my coalition not only addresses youth substance misuse, we also address relational abuse in our county. So we do quarterly domestic violence impact panel with adult probation and law enforcement, which also helps provide funding to CPAC. And then we do different activities and events like with programs for peaceful living to support and to forward that message of prevention for relational abuse as well.
So are you actually your own 501c3 or are you a 501 under SEEK's umbrella?
No, we are a
You're right.
501c3.
Yeah, that's been in the discussions for Classic for a while now too, just
I'm
because we need a way to, need a way to bring in some extra funds, so.
Because ultimately our, even under CPWI, the goal is to become sustainable. How do we continue to the work we do when dollars run out? Because we all know the ebb and flow of dollars.
Especially health, anything related to public health.
Yep.
So what is the plan? How would you become sustainable? Where are the revenue streams if the state goes into a budget crisis?
Well, that's one of the things we'd love to chat with you all about.
Honestly, like Classic's not in a stage where I mean, yes, we would be sustainable as far as just volunteers doing things, holding events in our community. We're pretty much running off almost nothing now. So we could keep running in that aspect. And with previous monies, when we purchased programs like for in schools, positive action, things like that, the Project Northland class action, those are things that are already purchased and we've already trained staff on. And so they could continue using those even if I go away.
Yeah.
So.
But like for our Klickitat, once our funding runs out, currently we don't have other funding streams. And so that is something I'm currently working on is a sustainability plan. So yes, can our Klickitat work with the county? Is this something that the county could maybe host in doing some prevention? What does that look like in a few years? Because prevention, and so like these dots that you mentioned, these are all social determinants of health. And so it impacts everything that we do, and it impacts all of the different, areas of our lives and of our kids' lives. And so how do we build community, make a difference? And I know that that's something that the county cares about.
And I would also say, CPAC's been around since 2005 and sometimes we had no funding. So volunteer base is definitely impactful. But it as far as like, to me, one of the best assets of getting the CPWI grant is having that student assisted professional in our schools. That on the grounds person that has access to our youth and is right there available and can do prevention within the schools and that education. That is vital. We can do community service work, but that person in the school is vital, and that person is vital to our schools as well. Our school staff and rely on them a lot. If funding were to ebb and flow, that would be one of those things that those positions would be cut. And that's part of that issue is because those fundings are tied together, but they're separated in how they're dispersed. So CPWI is their funding is ran through ESD 112, where ours comes through different resources within our community.
So the student assist, they're through the ESD, so do they advertise for them and pay for that position? Yes. And then they're coordinated with you? Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So I just did just a base analysis between the statewide averages for cigarettes, drinking, marijuana, all of that, and Klickitat County's numbers are higher than the statewide average. And I don't know if that's a rural thing or a rural urban divide thing. I haven't dug into it that much, but the best thing we could do is, and I haven't had a chance to really dig deep to look at where is it trending over time. Do you guys have any answers that you could give the board on? Are we trending towards less marijuana use in schools in Klickitat County, amongst our age ranges?
If you talk to our students, the answer is no, it's not lessening, it's increasing. If you look at our data, that's kind of supportive. Our numbers fluctuate with that. I think that we've kind of talked about the Healthy Youth Survey and how long it's been around, and it's administered by the state, and I think it's like 100 and some questions given to youth during school. So sometimes those answers are very accurate and sometimes they're not as accurate, and our kids are getting kind of savvy to them.
I would
The
say
state is working on that.
the state has also told us with this last year, the 23 survey, to be cautious of how much you read into it, just because during COVID, it used to be a paper survey that they took during school, and then during COVID, it switched to an online version. So they actually did it themselves during COVID. And so this is the first time they've all been back in school taking it, and it was online. So it's a little different than it used to be for them. So they've kind of warned us to be a little cautious of reading too much into anything until they've had it a couple more times.
And they follow the same age groups every 2 years. And during COVID, that chain was broken. So that also affected the data stream.
So there was a 3-year gap during COVID. And so it's a different group of kids who are taking it. One of the challenging things in our county is because it's such a small county and the schools are so small, we have countywide data, but we don't have community specific data. So that's an interesting thing when you're comparing Klickitat County to other areas that is impactful.
The other thing I will share is I participate in statewide coalitions that address legislation related to tobacco and vaping and other substances. And so the voice of prevention is uniting in that sense, as well as we're learning we've got to go to the lawmakers and in order to educate them and provide the information that then maybe change some of the laws and regulations around tobacco and vaping. There are several that are going to be on the dockets this next go around that are at least being talked about, and that we're trying to provide education to our representatives. Our youth group also is trying to address that within our own communities. Like, they have a plan to go to the vape shop that just opened here and at least meet and discuss how things are being sold and what can they do to help reduce youth access.
Questions?
I don't have any more questions. Thank you, ladies.
Do you have anything to add? I feel like we've all been talking a
Yeah.
lot. Maybe not.
No, I don't have anything. Thank you for the update. Thank you for the direction to the Safe Healthy study. I'm going to keep digging into it. But other than that, I don't have anything.
I don't.
Good to hear from you all. Good information too.
Thanks for having us.
More
Yeah,
to understand.
We appreciate your time and your consideration, hopefully, and some of the information that we're providing, because you too are our lawmakers. So thank you.
Well, and I see us turning a corner. I do see us charting that path more towards interaction and help and combining with each other, especially through our new health efforts that we're doing and our mental health efforts. I think even at the state level, you see it more interest building because they realize where the problems are. Yeah, more money.
Absolutely. How do we support our youth? How do we support our families? Because we have to support families in order for our youth to be able to grow up healthy. So those, I think, are the bottom line of what we take into consideration every day. So anytime that we can work together on supporting our families and our youth, yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, because money is a vehicle, but it's not the bottom line answer. The bottom line answer is action. And the actions that we take to support our community and make healthy choices.
I think on all of our efforts, I've seen lately how, and it wasn't just because of COVID. There was a time in our society where we just became disinvolved and we didn't volunteer for boards and we didn't, and I see that changing. We're starting to see people get interested and become active, realizing they have to influence what goes on if they want a good outcome. They have to participate. They can't just ask for it.
One thing that I haven't mentioned before I do, so I don't have a student assistance professional, but Culture Seed is who our Klickitat directly supports Culture Seed to work with youth in the community, and they're trying to expand. So,
okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. I think we did everything else on our agenda.
Madam Chair, did we get consensus from the board for the letter? Usually we don't need a motion for a letter of support.
Yes, we did.
I just wanted to make sure that that was.
Yep, it's signed.
Okay,
We haven't
as long
signed
as it's signed.
Apparently we haven't signed it.
I thought I saw it go through.
If she prepares it fast enough. How fast?
Well,
do you do that thing?
the one that I sent over hadn't been fully filled out yet, so I just wanted.
Okay.
I was like, wow, they did good work this morning.
Yeah, no, it was approved.
Ah,
And I have nothing else for the day.
don't need it.
Do we,
Lots for the day, just nothing for in this room.
when we close out, we do have KCPTA this evening.
Yep, I plan on being there in case of PTA meeting.
Okay.
You're ready for a motion?
Yes.
I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, noting that more than one commissioner may be attending the KCPTA meeting this evening.
I'll second the motion. There's nothing else that either commissioner will be at, right? I know you guys were talking about Thursday.
No, I was busy, so I was just asking questions to make sure somebody was going to be at those. So I'm
Okay.
thankful.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So we need your second.
Yeah, I did.
I thought I did.
Oh, you
second it.
did. Okay. So motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Jake.